The main character is amidst a fight. He thinks of the past when he wanted to give up everything because of the struggle, but now he has figured out how he can correct everything as we see him flanked and backed up by everyone. He says that if anyone ever calls him wrong, he will just say that he did it to survive. Then the scene moves into a school where we see a boy sitting down. The boy says that he plans to end himself soon. However, before he does so, he wants to write down about his damned school life. We see a bunch of kids singing happy birthday to the boy while stomping him down. They beat him, Yim Da-jun, down hard and made him eat up dirty cake from the ground. They humiliate him and take a picture with him while doing so. Da-jun writes this down in his note. We then see more scenes from that day, as the bully Doyen and his buddies bully Da-jun some more and tell him to bring another cake tomorrow to celebrate his next year's birthday in advance. The class bell rings and Doyen and his friends leave quickly to catch the class and not get chewed up by the teacher. Meanwhile, Da-jun slowly crawls his way back up and slowly makes his way back to the class, where he is scolded by his teacher for being late. We see students around Da-jun make fun of his situation as they speculate correctly about him getting bullied again. One student also says that Da-jun should end his life instead of bearing with this and have a good laugh about it. Da-jun writes it all down and says that he would get first place for writing a final will if this was a competition. He then speculates how doing this will mess up Doyen's life forever. He says that despite the fact that he won't be able to see it with his own two eyes, he is still happy from the thought of being able to mess up Doyen's life. He thinks how his family would react to him taking his own life. He thinks that his brother, a study addict, will still be studying with flashcards at his funeral. His sister will still be on her phone, and his parents won't really care much about him because he isn't really good at anything. However, he thinks that he should still inform his family and say his final goodbye. During the family dinner, Da-jun asks his sister where their mom is. She says that she isn't home yet. Da-jun, however, goes forward with his decision to say his final goodbye. He tells his dad that he is sorry for being a nuisance to them, but his dad doesn't want to hear it and tells him to move out of the way as he was blocking the TV. Da-jun is shocked, but he focuses on the TV. On the TV, we see a case of a high school student taking the lives of his bullies. Da-jun is immediately tuned into the news as we see that the kid was severely bullied at school. We then see the kid getting interviewed by the media where he is seen to be very proud of what he did to his bullies. He names them all and says that they are all monsters who humiliated him and made fun of his family. He says that he doesn't care one bit about what people say and that he did it because he had to survive. He further goes on to encourage fellow victims to step up and do the exact same thing as him. Da-jun's father thinks the kid is crazy for doing so, and despite the gullies making fun of him, he doesn't have any right to end them at all. However, Da-jun is fully consumed by the speech and is inspired by it. Later on, we see Da-jun in his bedroom, saying that he shouldn't end himself, he did nothing wrong. Instead, he should end Doyen and his friends for bullying him so much. He brings out a screwdriver and starts stabbing his pillow to practice what he wants to do to Doyen. The next day at school, Da-jun has brought the screwdriver along. However, he can't muster up the courage to go ahead with it. He says to himself that despite practicing, he lacks what he needs to do it. He says that he won't do it unless Doyen bullies him again, and just at that moment, Doyen comes to the scene and holds him by the back of the neck. He asks Da-jun if he has brought the cake along with him. Da-jun grabs a hold of his screwdriver and thinks of doing what he planned. Doyen keeps on pushing his buttons and asks whether he brought the cake to celebrate the birthday and gets more and more mad as Da-jun doesn't answer. Da-jun finally tries to go for it, but when he looks at Doyen, his body freezes up and he is scared. Da-jun says that he has a conditional fear of Doyen, and he is scared whenever he sees Doyen's face. He is so scared that instead of attacking with the screwdriver, he tries his best to hide it as we see Doyen punching him in the classroom. He then says that the party isn't over for Da-jun and he wants Da-jun to see him after school. After school, Da-jun goes to the backyard with Doyen and his friends. Doyen says that they've bought tons of stuff to celebrate Da-jun's birthday. The stuff he bought includes liquor, and Da-jun tells Doyen that he can't drink it. Doyen then tells that he must consume or it will be Da-jun's last day. They then make a disgusting cocktail of liquor, dirty socks, dirt, spit, and other stuff and ask Da-jun to drink it. Da-jun refuses and gets beaten up badly for it. With no option left, Da-jun gulps it down. However, being unable to hold it in, he vomits. They make fun of him and Doyen says that he must gulp it down fully before they stop. And so they keep on making the cocktail and have him drink it, however, he keeps vomiting. At one point, they run out of liquor, so Doyen tells his lackeys to go ahead and buy it again, as he won't let Dajun go until he drinks it all. As they go, Doyen tries to pour alcohol onto Dajun's face, unable to take it anymore and on the verge of it all ending. Dajun pushes away Doyen, breaking the bottle of alcohol and making a run for it. He doesn't know why he is running, but he still goes for it. However, Doyen soon catches up and beats up Dajun again. He delivers several punches to his face and grabs Dajun's hair and drags him back. As he is being dragged back, Dajun finally decides to do something. As he can't attack Doyen because he is afraid of his face, he can surely do something when he is facing Doyen's back. And so at the right moment, Dajun pushes Doyen away. Doyen is angry, however. Before he can do something, a car runs over Doyen. As everyone surrounds Doyen and people try to make sense of what happened, Dajun makes a run for his life, afraid of getting caught. Later, we see Dajun, all crumbled up on his bed, being scared about what he has supposedly done. He can't digest the fact that his push might have just ended Lee Doyen. He is all tensed up and scared that this is the end of his normal life. The next day, we see a very scared Dajun go to school. He is scared on just what the reaction will be if people know about what transpired between him and Doyen, if they're gonna attack him or not. As he enters the classroom, he is afraid that the police is behind the door, waiting to capture him for his crime, but to his surprise, it was business as usual. Nothing had changed except for the fact that the seat that was once occupied by Lee Doyen is empty now. Right after, we see a teacher walking in and announcing to everyone about the accident of Lee Doyen. He says that the accident has caused Lee Doyen to go into a comatose state, and that the accident was because of Lee Doyen walking on the road carelessly without thinking of the ongoing traffic. He says that everyone who wants to visit Doyen should do so at the hospital. Everyone is talking about it, whereas Dajun is conflicted and paranoid. He can't believe that he has supposedly gotten away with what he has done. His moral conscience is telling him to hand himself over to the police for trying to end the life of Lee Doyen, but he wants to spend a few days normally before doing so. The day at school goes by normally, class as usual, having lunch at lunchtime and reading novels at break time between classes. It was as if he was back to middle school again, where he used to do the same but couldn't do so in high school because of Lee Doyen's constant bullying of him and berating of his family. Dajun tears up thinking how he was not allowed to live a normal life as a high schooler because of Doyen. A few of his classmates come and playfully accuse Dajun of being the one who pushed off Doyen into the truck's path. They say so because they've seen Dajun leaving with Doyen's group that day. However, one of them refutes the theory, simply citing that someone as cowardly as Dajun can never do something like that in any way. Dajun feels kind of relieved and thinks that being a coward potentially saved him from a solid accusation. He is still being eaten up from the inside for what he had done, but seeing how those kids, who would usually bully him, are now ignoring him, and how most kids who were also bullied are living a normal day, makes him think maybe it wasn't such a bad thing to push him off. However, we then see a police car arrive to the school grounds. Everyone is scared or is pretending to be scared in a comedic way because they know that they must have come to arrest someone for what went down with Doyen. Dajun is scared and his worst nightmares come to fruition when someone says that the principal has called him to the school office. There at the office, he is immediately put in handcuffs as the police say that he is under arrest for attempting to end the life of Lee Doyen. The teachers ask how and why is it going down this way, as the police had told them that Doyen's accident was caused by him jaywalking, but the police tell them that it was because they hadn't seen Dajun in the truck's black box, and after inspecting a local CCTV camera's footage, they found out that Dajun was the one who pushed Doyen into harm's way. The teachers are devastated and they ask Dajun just why had he done what he had done. Why couldn't he continue to be a normal kid? Dajun has no answers for this as he is devastated himself. He thinks that after all, there is a God and he has to pay for what he did. Someone like him can never be happy. We then get to know that Dajun was put into 2 years of probation instead of being sent into a juvenile correction center. Him being bullied, having written a note which indicated that he was going to end himself, and the fact that he was under the influence of alcohol, all contributed to him getting off rather easily. However, he is now ostracized and can't live a normal life. His connection with his family sucks and he feels guilty for what he has done. He goes to school and finds out that he has been expelled for doing what he did. As he walks out, He hears his classmates talk about how what he did was wrong, and despite Doyen bullying him, he can't be finishing Doyen off for it. Some even say that Doyen was right in bullying him. This angers Dajuan, as he can't fathom how people who never went through the bullying he did are judging him so nonchalantly. After that, he goes back to the only place he can go back, home. However, upon arriving at his house, Dajuan is immediately told to leave by his father. Heartbroken, Dajuan leaves the house while crying. He is drenched by the rain as he walks the night street, and then he runs into the friends of Doyen, who bullied Dajuan alongside Doyen in the past. The bullies are angered and want to take revenge on Dajuan for what he did to Doyen. They viciously beat down Dajuan, telling him how wrong he was and that despite Doyen being a lowlife, Dajuan has no right to do what he did. One of them gets on top of Dajuan and rains down a barrage of punches on him, leaving him a bloody mess. He tells Dajuan to apologize for what he did. Dajuan, beaten up, can't believe that he is suddenly being told to apologize for what he did after being bullied so much. He can't believe how he is the bad guy all of a sudden for pushing Doyen once when Doyen has repeatedly pushed him off a metaphorical cliff, making his life a mess. Dajuan, unable to control his anger, gets angry and tells everyone that he won't apologize because they had bullied him first. The bully is angered and he keeps beating Dajuan up, asking him how dare he speak in a rebellious way. Unable to take all of this, Dajuan gets angry and picks up a piece of brick laying beside him. He uses the piece of brick and beats up the bully in a very bad way, leaving him laying in a pile of his own blood. Dajuan decides that he won't regret anything he did again, and that he will continue to do so. He will continue to end others to survive himself, but such actions from Dajuan makes no real difference to the perception of him to the other bullies. Instead of being scared, they're mad at him for standing up to them and beating up one of their friends. They tell Dajuan that just because they used umbrellas to beat him up first doesn't mean that they don't have other weapons, and they go on and start attacking Dajuan. The group of people surround Dajuan and then start raining down attacks on Dajuan. They beat him up pretty badly as they outnumber him by a lot and have a wider selection of weaponry. Dajuan is defiant though, trying his best to fight off his bullies by using the brick he had in his hand. He attacks one of them, but his comeback is quickly subdued by the other bullies as they raise the intensity of their attacks. Eventually, their beatdown sends Dajuan down to the ground, where the beating continues. They try to get Dajuan to concede, however. Dajuan is still angry and he won't give up no matter what. As the ruthless beatdown continues, a random homeless-looking man arrives to the scene. He tells everyone to not make such a scene at his home. The bullies make fun of him for calling the construction site his home and say that he should leave without interfering in their business. He said that it is indeed their home and he came back to eat. He also says that the brick in Dajuan's hand is his pillow, but now there's blood on it. The bullies are livid from such nonchalant behavior from the man, so they get mad and threaten him to leave. The man quickly accepts and says he will leave for another one of his homes. The bullies make fun of him for leaving cowardly, and as they try to focus on Dajuan, the homeless-looking man returns. He throws his cup of instant ramen on one of the bullies as a diversion to quickly get into his rhythm and deliver a solid jumping kick to the head. The fight continues as the bullies try to attack him. However, it seems that they're no match for the skills of this random guy who came out of nowhere. He delivers a leg kick to one of the bullies and delivers a solid right-handed punch to another guy. He then follows it up with a knee to the midsection on one of them. Another bully comes and tells the guy to leave his friend, so he kicks the guy he had held and sends him flying back onto his friend. He then attacks that bully by using his fingers to attack his eyes. We then see another bully with a stick trying to attack him for looking down onto them. However, he brings out a supposed weapon wrapped around with a paper and asks him if he still wants to continue. The bully is visibly scared because the weapon looks like a knife. He then makes fun of him for being scared now after they see his weapons, even though they have the numbers and weapons advantage. Then it is revealed that the weapon he had wasn't a knife, but instead chopsticks wrapped around with paper. This shocks the bully. However, he has no time to get back in the zone as the homeless man delivers a hard kick to the jaw. Dajuan is amazed by how a guy like him took down Doyen's crew with such utter ease. He feels satisfied by it. The bullies run away as the man makes fun of them for abandoning the friendship. However, Dajuan stands there and thanks the guy for saving his life. The guy is annoyed by Dajuan's presence. Dajuan asks for the guy to teach him how to fight, but he wants to have none of it. He is instead worried about not having anything to eat. Dajun tells him that he will buy him ramen, so they go to the shop where Dajun feeds him and tells him his story. The guy praises Dajun for standing up and taking care of Lee Doyen. He says that people like Doyen don't understand normally, so they need to be taken care of in such a manner. Dajun takes this chance to ask for his answer to his previous request. He answers it by saying no. Dajun is devastated and promises to buy him more food in the future, but he still won't budge. He tells Dajun that he isn't made for fighting and that he can't hang with the bullies. He tells Dajun that he isn't one for street life and that he should go back home. Dajun is still adamant on learning how to fight as he wants to take proper revenge on his bullies. So Dajun starts stalking the homeless-looking man from the next onwards. He starts following everything he does, step by step. He begins by following his routine of wearing clothes from the trash to get used to street life. He then follows his eating habits, where he brings a pack of rice and uses cat food as his side dish. Dajun tries to do so as well, but he gets caught and gets chased off for stealing cat food. Later on, he sees the man sleeping at a children's playground where all the kids are too afraid to even go near him. Dajun tries that as well, but the kids don't fear him and instead start playing on top of him. Dajun starts losing hope in the guy, but then he sees him fighting a bunch of thugs on the street and regains confidence in him. Despite how he is a very skilled fighter. The guy eventually gets annoyed by Dajun stalking him so obviously and calls him out. He asks Dajun if he is going to keep following him to learn how to fight. Dajun says he will keep following him. Then, to Dajun's surprise, the homeless man agrees to teaching him how to fight, but on one condition. He points to one of the bullies from the Doyen squad nearby and tells Dajun to beat him up. Dajun can't do it. He says that Dajun did well when he used a brick to smash one of the bullies earlier, but what he has been doing isn't called fighting. It's merely him trying to survive, so if he really wants to take revenge, he needs to turn the tables on the bullies. Then we see Dajun being prepared to jump the bully from behind and start fighting him. Dajun says to himself that he was the prey, but from this moment onwards, he is the predator. We then see a flashback of when Dajun and the bully Yonghyun was in school. Yonghyun apologizes to Dajun, telling him he was sorry for making him strip in front of girls, throwing water onto him, etc., etc. He says he is really sorry for bullying him. Dajun was shocked by this sudden apologetic behavior, but his classmates tell him to accept the apology because it is so sincere. Yonghyun offers his hand in apology and asks Dajun to grab it. However, upon grabbing it, Yonghyun crushes Dajun's hand with sheer force. Yonghyun, being a baseball athlete who is well built, has a grip strength of 84 kilos, which leaves Dajun screaming in agony, and Yonghyun made fun of it, saying that he feels like a new man after apologizing and promises to apologize like this to Dajun every day. Back to the current timeline, we see Dajun seething in anger, thinking of those times from the past. He controls his steps and jumps down from above on the unsuspecting Yonghyun, who is on a call. Dajun lands a sort of stomp kick variation which sends Yonghyun flying. The homeless man is kind of impressed by it, and Dajun is ecstatic because it felt nice and he can't believe how easily he took out his enemy. However, at that very moment, Yonghyun punches Dajun very hard and sends him flying back. Yonghyun can't believe how someone like Dajun was the one who decided to sneak attack him. He attacks Dajun viciously and asks him if he didn't get enough of a beatdown from the construction site. The homeless man is disappointed by all this. He thought Dajun really had something, but it all turned out to be nothing. Yonghyun makes fun of Dajun, says he never hit Dajun with full force and that he only goes all out against athlete, but now he will attack Dajun with his full power. Dajun, however, doesn't give up and uses a bag full of trash to swing and hit Junghyun's face. Yonghyun blocked the attack, however. This is Dajun's shot to attack him while his vision is blurred and tries to land a takedown on Yonghyun. However, it doesn't work out for Dajun as Yonghyun blocks the tackle and attacks him repeatedly. Yonghyun pushes Dajun against a wall and tries to hit him, but Dajun tries to poke his eyes out. The homeless man smiles a little, seeing how Dajun is literally copying his fighting style from the construction site. However, he says that Dajun isn't good at using that style, as we see Yonghyun crushing Dajun's finger for trying to poke his eyes. Yonghyun asks Dajun why he is doing this, why he feels the need to attack them, and if he feels cheated. Dajun says to himself that he indeed feels cheated because they are the ones behind his expelling. He says that if he could, he won't let end each and every one of the bullies. He then thinks of what the homeless man said to him when he said that he can't beat up someone like Jung-hyun. He told him there is a chance because in a street fight there's no tactics. Jung-hyun is one of the people who ruined his life, so there is no need to hold back. He should go all out. Jung-hyun tries to him again but stops after seeing his glare. It pisses Jung-hyun off how he won't stop glaring. Da-joon, taking the advice from the homeless man to his heart, brings out a knife-like object covered in paper and holds it against Jung-hyun's body. Jung-hyun is taken aback. However, he tells Da-joon that he doesn't believe that a loser like Da-joon has the guts to show up with a knife, but when he holds it, he gets scared by the feel of it. Da-joon tells him to hold it hard with his grip strength, just like how he used to hold his hands all the time, and kicks him in the gut. The homeless man says that Da-joon is crazier than he thought he was, but is worried if Da-joon is using a fake knife like he was, but the reaction from Jung-hyun says something else. On the other side, we see Jung-hyun wondering just what had gone wrong for Da-joon to go full out crazy and bring a knife to a fight. He makes a run for it but ends up going the wrong way and is followed by Da-joon. As Da-joon approaches him with the knife, he is in doubt. Will Da-joon really go for it and end him? Jong-hyun, who was backing off, gets caught by Da-joon with a strike to the top of his head with the underpart of the dagger. Da-joon can't be stopped. He is angry and he keeps throwing kicks and punches with no stop. He throws a wild cross right to the upper body of Jung-hyun and then creates distance by delivering several front push kicks to him. Jung-hyun is mad and he can't believe it that he is being beat up by someone like Da-joon. However, there is not a lot he can do because of the knife that Da-joon is wielding. Da-joon then hits Jung-hyun with another front push kick. However, this time Jung-hyun tries to retreat out of this. He grabs his ribs and says Da-joon to not attack him anymore because the recent kick just hit him in the injured area and might have caused the breaking of his ribs. He admits his fault and asks Da-joon to calm down. This pisses off Da-joon beyond limits, as he kicks him in the supposedly broken ribs again, while tauntingly asking if Jung-hyun wants him to stop. Da-joon says that Jung-hyun has no idea just what kind of a life he has had because of Jung-hyun and his bully friends. Da-joon keeps unloading with the covered knife. By striking Jung-hyun over and over again, Jung-hyun apologizes and says that it was all his fault. Da-joon says that no one listened to him. He was beaten unconscious with punches and kicks, was made to do very embarrassing things. Yet when he gained back consciousness, it was him who had to apologize to Jung-hyun and his friends, telling them that it was his fault despite of Da-joon being the victim. Someone like Jung-hyun has no idea what Da-joon had to go through in his life every day, every night, wanting to end his life, so he has no right to apologize and ask Da-joon to stop. The homeless man, who was observing the fight, sees this and thinks about how impressive it is for Da-joon to beat up his bully. However, as he talks about his old memories, Da-joon slowly starts breaking down and stops attacking Jung-hyun, dropping his guard. However, Jung-hyun was waiting for this exact opportunity, and thus he uses this chance to grab a hold of Da-joon's arm and lock in a sort of jujitsu hold to disarm the knife from Da-joon's arm and takes control of it. Now, Jung-hyun has the control over the knife and he confronts Da-joon by saying that now he has no reason to hold back and get hit by Da-joon because the knife is with him now. Jung-hyun says that he always knew that a coward like Da-joon could never use a knife and could never stab him. However, he is not a coward like him and he can very much stab him with the knife. Jung-hyun then stabs in the knife into Da-joon's leg. However, the knife doesn't penetrate the skin and flesh of Da-joon. Jung-hyun then uncovers the knife from the paper to find out that it was just a steel ruler scale. The homeless man is impressed by this act of intelligence by Da-joon, as successfully manages to deceive Jung-hyun into thinking it's a knife. Jung-hyun can't believe it that he got tricked by a ruler. Da-joon taunts Jung-hyun by saying that even though Jung-hyun called him a coward, it was Jung-hyun himself who got scared by a ruler. Jung-hyun then starts a ground and pound assault of Da-joon. He keeps throwing non-stop punches to his face from a top-up position, getting Da-joon all bloodied up, and he has no intention to stop. He is mad and asks how dare someone like Da-joon tried playing a trick on him. After all, he is the baseball team's psycho. However, at that very moment, we see the homeless man walk up to Jung-hyun from behind and drop his drink on top of Jung-hyun's head and say that he doesn't think that Jung-hyun is a psycho and that he has a very long way to go before he can even become one. This angers Jung-hyun as the homeless man interfered in his fight and is now insulting him. So he gets up from Da-joon and approaches the homeless man with dangerous intent. However, to the homeless man, this is merely a joke and he delivers a side kick to Jung-hyun's chin to knock his lights out. The homeless man then helps Dejun recover and asks him if he has any idea on what would have happened to him if he had not interfered. He then tells Dejun that he tried well and almost got the better of his bully. However, he can't teach him how to fight because that was what they agreed upon. This breaks down Dejun as he doesn't know what to do anymore. He gets mad at himself for losing control of the situation and dropping his guard. He thinks nothing has changed for him since he was a victim of bullying and that he still is a loser. He violently thumps down his fists on the road in anger. The homeless man notices this and asks Dejun if he really is that desperate and serious about learning to fight and getting stronger. He then offers to give Dejun a second chance, and if he passes there, the homeless man will teach him how to fight. That being said, the upcoming mission for Dejun to accomplish will be way harder than the first one thrown at him. He then asks Dejun to follow him. After a while, we see them walk into a new area. Dejun tells the homeless man that they've been walking for ages now and the homeless man has not been telling him where they're going. He has no idea what is up with this neighborhood as he is new here. The homeless man asks Dejun if he thinks the bullies of his school are the worst humanity can offer, to which Dejun says they indeed are. The homeless man smirks and says that they're not even close to being the worst. In fact, there are way more worse people than them. For example, people so bad that even the schools couldn't control them and they had to move away from the normal school life. He says the people of that kind all gather in this area and live here in a much different and violent life than what he can imagine. Dejun is scared and asks him why he would bring Dejun to such a dangerous place, to which the homeless man says that Dejun has also been expelled from his school and kicked out of his house, and for him to live in the street and toughen up, he should learn to live here in this neighborhood. The homeless man then kicks Dejun into a dark room and tells him to survive this room if he wants the homeless man to teach him how to fight and live the street life. Dejun is left shocked and overwhelmed as he looks up to see very intimidating figures surrounding him. Now Dejun needs to figure out how he will survive in such an hard environment with dangerous people surrounding him and looking to get him. Then we see Dejun on his knees, being interrogated by the group of people living in that home. The red-haired guy asks Dejun if he needs to live in this house and survive to learn how to fight. Dejun says that is the case. He then asks just who asked him to do this and dumped him here unceremoniously. Dejun tells them that it was the homeless-looking man, Cho Hang-il. They are then really disappointed by this thing that Cho Hang-il has done. The red-haired guy then asks Dejun if knows how to fight, to which Dejun says that he can't fight. They can tell that he can't from his appearance, so they ask if there is anything he is even good at, to which Dejun also says no. The girl asks Dejun if he has ever worked somewhere, to which Dejun once again says that he hasn't and doesn't know how to work. The red-haired man is frustrated because Dejun can't do anything for them and is basically useless to them as an asset. The man says that he has no idea why Cho Hang-il would choose to let someone as useless as Dejun into their group. However, they can't even kick him out of the house either because Cho Hang-il sent him here after all. The other person then says that it is too late for them to ponder about what to do with him and that they should at least let him sleep over for the night. The man then grabs Dejun's hand and takes him to a room. He opens a door and tells him to sleep in that room. Dejun is left flabbergasted as the room he has been told to sleep in is a laundry room which is already more than half occupied by a washing machine. The red-haired man then tells Dejun that there is no reason for him to be so overwhelmed and grateful yet, because they're not going to let him live for free. He says that if Dejun really has no real abilities to help their group, he can at least put his body to work, so Dejun should look forward to the upcoming day. We then see that Dejun is doing the entire house's work on his own from the next morning onwards. He is seen washing the bathroom and toilet. He is seen carrying plants in the garden to help the girl. It's all very hard work, however, he can't oppose it because at least he is getting to live there and get food to eat, which is a lot better than going to the school or living on the streets. We then see the group having good food together for lunch, whereas Dejun is seen alone inside the small laundry room, eating much less and cheaper food. We also learn that Dejun has started exploring the outside neighborhood as he has to go out quite often to buy groceries and run errands. Dejun says that this place is a lot tougher and harsher than anything he has ever seen. It's a crime-filled city and it seems like all the gangsters live there. Dejun mistakenly makes eye contact with one of the gangsters while walking home with groceries, which pisses off the gangster. He approaches Dejun and asks him why he looked at them and accuses him of staring at his girlfriend's leg. Dejun thinks that he really must be a bully magnet because this always happens to him. He threatens Dejun, saying that he will let him go if he bows down and apologizes to them, because if not, he will teach Dejun a lesson. Dejun stays calm and quiet, not saying anything but getting angry inside. He realizes that the guy is showing off to his girlfriend and it pisses him off, but he keeps quiet. However, the gangster is angered by it and he tries to attack Dejun. Dejun says to himself that he would normally take this and move on. However, this is what Cho Hang-il wanted him to survive in, so he will no longer hold back and he channels his anger to get into a fighting stance and ready to throw a punch. The gangster is shocked, takes a few steps back, but that is because the red-haired man is behind Dejun. The man, named Cha Dae-yob, asks the gangster why they've been messing with his houseboy and pushes the gangster with his shoulder. He then takes away Dejun from there and tells him to not waste time outside if he is done buying groceries. He should instead come back and start cleaning the veranda. The gangster is angered by this, but his friends try to warn him, saying that Cha Dae-yob is a dangerous man with gnarly rumors to his name. Also, he has Kim Taek with him. They're Cho Hang-il's crew and shouldn't be messed with. However, the gangster is angry and doesn't want to be a coward like his buddies, and he rushes to sneak attack Cha Dae-yob with a knife. However, Dae-yob sidesteps and uses the guy's own momentum to slam him down hard on the road, using a judo technique. Cha Dae-yob then asks them if anyone else wants to fight, to which all the goons run away. Yim Dejun is left in awe, as he realizes that Dae-yob is just as strong as Hang-il. He wonders if all of Hang-il's friends are just as strong as this. We then see the humiliated gangster, who is back up from the attack of Dae-yob, banging his head on a wall, in anger as his friends try to stop him. He is mad beyond limits and he vows to finish off everyone in that group. He doesn't care if they're friends with the infamous Cho Hang-il. Then we see an unknown shady figure walk up to them and ask if they're really serious about finishing off Cho Hang-il's crew. The shady man offers to help them in their quest to finish off the crew if they really want to do it. Later the scene changes and we see Cho Hang-il's group sleep together in a room, while Dejun sleeps in his laundry room. That is when we see the gangster who wanted revenge come to their doorstep with a cylinder full of harmful gas. He then leaks that gas using a pipe into the room, which slowly starts suffocating all of the Cho Hang-il crew. Dejun wakes up and smells something weird. He isn't affected much by it because he was in a different room. So he gets out and feels the room filled with harmful gas and everyone choking out. Dejun dashes forward and pushes open the door to let out the air. However, the door smashes into the gangster and Dejun recognizes him. The gangster makes a run for it and escapes. Dejun thinks to himself that these people don't really rate him. They make fun of him for being useless, and while that is true, he still wants to do something for them. So, Yim Dejun runs himself, trying to chase down the gangster who wanted revenge on them. We see the gangster thinking he has created enough distance as he stops to catch a breather. He doesn't understand why Dejun wasn't affected by the gas, wondering if he sleeps in a different room than the Cho Hang-il crew. However, just at that time, we see Yim Dejun arrive to scene, determined to beat up scum like the one ahead of him. He tells him to stop as he gets ready for some action. We then see a flashback to a few days before the gas attack on the Choi Hang-il crew, where we see Yim Dejun standing on the rooftop with Cha Dae-yob. Cha Dae-yob asks Yim Dejun just why is he pestering him. Dejun tells Dae-yob that he wants to learn how to fight from him. Dejun was impressed by how Dae-yob took out the gangster from before with a single blow, and he wants to learn that and be just as effective as him. Cha Dae-yob is left wondering just what he will do with this guy. He wishes that Cho Hang-il would just come and take Dejun away from him, because even though he wants to learn how to fight, he can't because of his lack of talent and physicality. However, then Dae-yob gives Dejun a skipping rope. Dejun is confused with what he received, but Dae-yob informs him that weaklings like him need to train a lot to get better at fighting. Dejun asks Dae-yob how many he needs to do, to which Dae-yob dismissively tells him to do however many he wants. Dejun then asks Dae-yob how many he is capable of doing, to which Dae-yob says that he can easily do 100,000 repetitions. Back when he was still working out crazily, he could do that much with relative ease. This leaves Yim Dejun confused, as 100,000 repetitions of jump ropes is a lot. The next day, we see a yawning Cha Dae-yob walking up to the rooftop, wondering what is Yim Dejun up to and where he is, as he hasn't seen him since the night before. After all, Dejun didn't even do the dishes for the day. Then Dae-yob realizes that he had told Dejun to do jump rope. He wonders if the guy is really doing 100,000 repetitions. After all, he was only bluffing when he said that he could do that many with ease. However, he feels that Dejun isn't that stupid, or is he? Then Dae-yeob goes into shock as he sees an exhausted Dejun skipping ropes while looking more like a zombie on autopilot than a human being. Dae-yeob wonders if he really stayed up all night to do this and asks Dejun why he is doing this stupid thing, as it is basically countless. Dejun barely speaks from the breathlessness and huffingly speaks to say that he still has 47,000 repetitions to go. He is doing it because he wants to be as strong as Dae-yeob. Dae-yeob is shocked, but he doesn't show it and shrugs it off. Dae-yeob then asks Dejun if he really thinks that doing 100,000 repetitions of jump ropes will make him as strong as him and suggests Dajun to quit this attempt and go back to doing dishes. He thinks to himself why Dejun is trying so hard to fight. The scene then changes back to present time where we see Dejun fighting with the gangster who wanted revenge from Cho Hang-il's crew. Dejun tries to hit him with a right hook. However, the gangster blocks it with his forearm before hitting Dejun with a wicked uppercut to the chin and knocking him down. However, Dejun doesn't stay down for long as he gets back up again and tries to stop the gangster from getting away. The gangster is shocked by how Dejun keeps getting back up over and over again despite being hit down by him so much. The gangster tries to make a run for it, but Dejun chases right behind him and almost grabs him back. But the gangster anticipates it and he ends up hitting Dejun with a hard elbow, sending him down on the floor again. The gangster makes a run to save himself again. He says that he can't waste his time here and he needs to leave the town as soon as possible because he failed to take revenge on Cho Hang-il's crew. So this means the man who helped him in getting this is going to be mad. He is already a target for the Cho gang because of this. However, as he tries to run down the stairs, Dejun gets right back up again, and he grabs his leg and trips him into tumbling down the stairs, stopping him and hurting him. Dejun then gets ready to take control and tells the gangster that he has nowhere to go anymore and asks him what he meant when he said that he is a target of the Cho gang. However, the tables turn on Dejun pretty quickly when the gangster pulls out a knife to attack. Dejun is frozen and he says that he finally feels what it is like when someone points a knife at you, remembering about a time when he pointed a knife, albeit fake, at Jung-hyun. However, this knife is real and the gangster is unhinged. He will do anything to get out of this predicament, as he is really scared of getting caught by the Cho gang. He swings the knife to land a cut on Dejun. However, Dejun is capable of somewhat dodging these attacks. However, as he is backed against a wall and he trips down and falls. The gangster then tries to use his knife to stab Dejun to finish him off for good. However, Dejun uses his wits to use a concrete tile to block it. However, the tile isn't very strong and is broken into two pieces easily. And now, with nothing to help him block the attack, Dejun is on the verge of getting stabbed by this psycho gangster. The scenes then change to the house, where we see that the Cho Hang-il crew is already woken up. They're trying to regroup, wondering what caused them to feel so breathless and dizzy and who was the one behind it. They assume that it must have been the gangsters from before, trying to take revenge on them. Then they wonder who saved them from choking out on the gas, and how they did it. Cha Dae-yeob interrupts the conversation and says that it was Yim Dejun who helped them and saved their lives. The others then say that the people who attacked them must be dangerous people with dangerous intentions. So what is Dejun thinking when he went after them? Because he will end up being all finished when he tries to fight those people. However, Cha Dae-yeob assertively says that Dejun will survive. Then we see a flashback of when Dejun saved them. Dae-yeob was half awake, so Dejun tells him that now the group owes them one because he almost choked out himself trying to drag everyone from that gas-filled room, and that he has saved their lives by doing so Dae-yeob should teach him how to fight. Dae-yeob is speaking gibberish, so Dejun wonders if Dae-yeob is even awake enough to understand him. However, he keeps on going as he asks Dae-yeob to divide the house chore fairly and that he will also take a part-time job to support them and that he wants to be let in on the meat-eating parties they do. Dae-yeob refuses, but Dejun realizes that Dae-yeob is awake enough to understand, so he puts out a deal where he promises to bring back the man who attacked them with gas by himself, and if he manages to do so, Dae-yeob will accept him and train him properly. He then forcefully takes his hand and does the promise handshake. Back to the current time, Dae-yeob explains this to them and says that no matter what, Yim Dejun will never go down without giving the fight of his life. Back to the fight scene, we see that the knife stab from the gangster was stopped by Dejun by using his bare hands. This shocks the gangster as he can't believe how crazy Dejun is for doing that. Then Dejun speaks up, asking the gangster if that's all he had when he said that he would be finishing off Dejun, before getting up and pushing him back hard while still grabbing the knife. He pushes him to the point that the gangster's back is against the edge of the bridge they're fighting on. However, the gangster predicts that Dejun is simply trying to get leverage so that he can use the same flip slam technique as Dae-yob before. However, he is wrong as Dejun explains that he ain't trying to flip him, as he then aggressively pushes himself onto the gangster, sending both men tumbling down from a big height, putting them both at the risk for their lives. As they fall down, Yim Dejun looks determined to gravely hurt the gangster. However, the gangster is shocked by the sheer insanity of the move Yim Dejun is pulling off at that moment. They both hit the concrete wall around the bridge, bouncing off of it several times as they tumble down to the ground. The knife falls off from the gangster's hand upon the constant impact of bouncing off on the concrete. They both eventually have a hard fall at the ground. However, Dejun gathers himself and is ready to take out the gangster with one last blow. He takes a big chunky brick he found laying on the road and is fully intent to end it all with a head to the gangster's head. However, he finds out that the gangster is already down and out from the blow he received upon hitting the ground and his head hitting the pole. Dejun is overjoyed because for the first time in his life, he has won a fight. He has just outdone and beaten a gangster who he could have never even imagined about beating. He gets confident and thinks that maybe he has a natural talent for fighting when he suddenly notices that the knife that had slipped out of the gangster's hand has gone on to penetrate his abdomen. As he collapses, he just curses his bad luck. Then the scene changes, and we see that Yim Dejun is back up, but he is in the hospital, surrounded by the Cho Hang Il crew, who were waiting for him to regain his consciousness. Apparently, the Cho Hang Il crew had found him lying there unconscious, after which they picked Dejun up and took him to the hospital. However, the gangster who attacked them with gas was already gone by them. Perhaps he ran away. The doctor said that Dejun's knife wound was shallow and nothing serious, and that the actual problem was the high-impact fall, which had exhausted him to the point of collapsation. Cha Dae-yob tells Dejun to man up as his injuries weren't serious and that he will be fine in no time. He also tells Dejun that he doesn't need to feel down even though he lost and failed to keep his promise. However, they also decide to accept Dejun's deal with Dae-yob, where he asked for similar privileges and fight training, despite him not catching the gangster. Dae-yob tells him that despite everything, they owe him one for saving their lives and trying so hard. They also praise him for doing something so courageous as jumping off a bridge with the gangster, which is fitting of someone who was brought in by Cho Hang Il. Then we see Cho Hang Il himself at the hospital. He tells Dejun that he has learned to survive and that Dejun will soon start training to learn how to fight. However, if he doesn't want to, he is open to leaving the group. However, Dejun is determined and says that he will be starting the training as soon as he is discharged. The scene changes to where we see the Cho Hang Il crew granting one of Yim Dejun's biggest wishes other than wanting to learn how to fight, him wanting to join in with them to eat pork belly together. They are really shocked how this was one of his key wishes and how he could have asked for something way better than to eat pork belly. However, Dejun is like a man possessed. He is really excited about eating pork belly and he eats a lot of it. They're amazed by how much he likes eating pork belly. Cha Dae-yob says that by the way Dejun is eating, he is looking like they've starved him for days. This statement puts everyone in silence because they've been feeding him bad for a while after all. One of them says that they've been feeding Dejun only tuna since he came, but Dae-yob is mad because they all agreed to feeding him despite everything. Then they all collectively apologize to Dejun for feeding him bad food for so long. However, they did it because they're also runaway people with their own issues, so they can't just be treating a random somebody with equal value right after he comes to the place. Dejun then breaks into tears, saying that he didn't want to live a life like this. However, it was forced on him, and he can't believe it why he of all people needs to suffer so much. Dae-yob then asks Dejun if he feels like he is the only one with issues like this. He tells Dejun that there is not a single person here without issues. Everyone is suffering in their own way, whether that be more than him or less. He says that there are people here who don't even have a family to be kicked out of. It's that bad. However, they know that living on the street is hard, so if Dejun doesn't want to live on the streets, he is free to live in this household. Because living with punks ain't that bad either. This makes Dejun smile, and he wonders when was the last time he smiled like this. The others are also happy, but they make fun of Dae-yob afterwards for making such a melodramatic speech. That being said, the next day onwards, Life resumes for Dejun, although a bit different. He is now moved out of the laundry room and lives with the rest of them like normal. However, being cramped for space makes him think that it might not be a great thing after all. He has also started to talk a little with everyone, even though it is a bit awkward for now. The awkwardness is even more evident because of the lack of a big age difference, as the oldest one is Cho Hang-il at 19 only, whereas there are two others in the group who are the same age as Dejun at 17. The household chores have also been somewhat divided. However, everyone else has a job to do to bring in money, except for Dejun and Cho Hang-il. They're both jobless and are left at home to do most of the work, but Hang-il is lazy, so he doesn't want to do chores. He instead tells Dejun it is fine to slack off and to train in fighting instead. However, that doesn't sit well with Cha Dae-yob, who kicks Dejun out of the place and tells him that it is not fine to slack off and that he should try to find a part-time job and earn for the household. Dejun then finds a part-time job at a pizza shop. However, he doesn't fit in well. Life is tough due to the rough customers and the overly harsh boss. So much so that he doesn't want to work there and thinks of quitting because people aren't as nice as the runaway family of his. That being said, the boss daughter, Neon, walks into the place and Dejun is left stunned by her beauty. However, he realizes that girls aren't into him and that he shouldn't focus on that, but the girl looks at him and calls him cute. This melts Dejun, and from here on out, this girl will change his life forever. The scene then changes, where we see Cho Hang-il beat up a goon, asking him the whereabouts of someone. He then tells the goon to tell someone to come to him with the gangster who attacked them with gas, or else he will go to them and finish them off for good. Neon is at a pizza shop, demonstrating her pizza-making skills to Dajun. Dajun is amazed by her proficiency. When he struggles to open a simple jar, Neon steps in and helps him. Later, Dajun accidentally breaks a dish, and Neon quickly comes to his aid, asking if he is hurt and assuring him that she will keep it a secret from her father. Grateful, Dajun thanks Kim Taek for introducing him to the job. Kim Taek, a regular customer, had influenced the shop owner to hire Dajun. As Dajun looks at Neon, he wonders if this could be a lifetime job. As long as there are no rude customers, it seems perfect to him. Just as he is lost in thought, a customer rudely confronts Neon, questioning why she cares if he smokes. Neon apologizes politely, explaining that other customers are present. The customer reacts aggressively, throwing a drink at her. Dajun, furious, starts to run towards the customer, but his boss stops him, saying Neon is fine. Despite the incident, Neon smiles and continues to apologize to the customer. When the customer leaves, both Neon and her father bow and apologize, even offering to refill his drink. The customer rudely refuses and exits. Dajun is shocked by the lack of confrontation from the boss. He asks why nothing was said when Neon was mistreated. Neon, drying her hair with a towel, assures Dajun that she is fine. The boss sits at a table and asks Dajun if he wants to ruin their business by reacting. Neon suggests they all calm down and asks Dajun if he is from a different neighborhood. When Dajun confirms, she explains that a dangerous organization operates in their area, making it hard for ordinary people to distinguish such individuals. They must be careful with such customers. The boss laments not wanting his daughter to suffer and admits he has seen many stores close after being targeted by these people. He blames himself for their situation, feeling guilty for being broke and uneducated. Neon thanks Dajun for his concern, explaining that running the store allows her to attend school and her dad to work. Dajun marvels at how mature Neon is despite being the same age. She then comforts her father, urging him not to cry and to prepare for the night shift. Observing this, Dajun realizes that life there is much harder than he thought. As Dajun adjusts to his job, he begins his first lesson. He and Hangil stand on a terrace, with Hangil reading a comic book. Hangil tells Dajun to start by eliminating his fear of hitting someone. Dajun, looking serious, suggests that they might not need to worry about that. Hangil hits him with the comic book, telling him not to be overconfident just because he won once. He asks if Dajun plans to jump off with the gangsters every time he fights, pointing out that Dajun still can't beat them properly. Dajun asks what he should do, and Hangil reassures him that he will reshape him. Hangil asks if anyone from Dajun's family has come looking for him. Dajun responds that even if they find him, he has no reason to leave. Over the next few days, Hangil drives Dajun hard, making him do push-ups, squats, sit-ups, and odd footwork exercises while Hangil reads comic books. Dajun doubts if this is proper training, noting that he hasn't thrown a single punch. After his exercises, Dajun approaches Hangil, saying he is fine with the footwork but asking if Hangil has a guaranteed way to always win. Hangil replies that he has already shown him to use his surroundings, stop the opponent's movements, block their vision, and look for an appropriate weapon. Finally, Hangil smiles, acknowledging that developing these senses is difficult, but encourages Dajun to work hard. Suddenly, Dajun shows Hangil a boxing match on his phone, expressing a desire to fight like that. Hangil stands up and tries to strike Dajun with the comic book again, but Dajun dodges. Surprised, Hangil strikes 3 more times, and Dajun dodges each one. Hangil smiles and says he will now teach Dajun how to use his fists properly. Preparing for a punch, Hangil notices Dajun's fear. A few days later, in an abandoned warehouse, another gangster, Chun Ki-woong, is beating up a man wearing a helmet with a baseball bat. 3 other men watch and ask Ki-woong what they should do about Cho Hangil, who has been going around attacking their guys. Ki-woong rests the bat on his shoulder and asks what they want him to do. He then places the bat on the shoulder of the man who spoke earlier, implying that they should let him handle the situation without causing more trouble. Suddenly, the helmet of the beaten man is removed, revealing him as the gangster responsible for the blast incident. Ki-woong tells him that it's all his fault. The gangster begs for mercy, but Ki-woong shoves the bat into his mouth and tells him to stop wasting his energy on pointless pleas. Ki-woong remarks that he has never cut anyone slack, but suggests he should step forward to avoid getting caught by their superiors. One of the 3 men comments that it would be easier if he did. Ki-woong gives them 30 minutes to find Cho Hangil's group, saying he won't give them much time. One of them protests that it's impossible, but Ki-woong, with a creepy smile, reminds them that he's still there. Terrified, all 3 men run off to locate Hangil's group. 2 of them reach Hangil's home and knock on the door, but there's no response. One suggests they might as well gang up on Chun Ki-woong, but the other retorts that Ki-woong is worse than Cho Hangil. They call their 3rd companion, who is at the pizza shop. In the next scene, Dajun is walking near the pizza shop where he works part-time. He muses that it has been a while since he started working and wonders if they could change to a weekly salary. As he approaches, he notices the shop's glass window is broken and sees a fat guy inside talking with 2 other men. The fat guy grabs the owner's collar and, on a phone call, accuses him of being close to Kim Taek yet not knowing his whereabouts. The owner is being beaten by the fat guy, who then looks outside, spots Dajun, and angrily yells at him for staring. Dajun sees Nian sitting on the ground as if someone has pushed her and clenches his teeth, declaring he will help her. Nian, murmuring for him to run away, goes unheard by Dajun. Dajun reflects on how different Nian is from him. She is kind, warm-hearted, and capable, unlike him, who acts recklessly without thinking. Nian endures hardship quietly, working hard to protect the store for her father's sake. Dajun resolves to be mature like Nian, understanding that everyone has their way of living. Suddenly, he throws a drink bottle at the fat guy, but the man dodges it. Dajun steps through the broken pizza shop door. The fat guy demands to know who he is, and Dajun, looking at him angrily, responds that he is a regular there. In a flashback, we see that the fat guy's name is Kim Tae-young. Despite his large body being all muscle and no fat, he has never worked out a day in his life. Kim Tae-young used his natural gifts solely for violence. Unlike Dajun, he got expelled for a different reason. No one could stand up to Kim Tae-young, at least inside the school. Outside of school, only Chun Ki-woong was his natural enemy. Tae-young always thought of himself as invincible, but that notion was being challenged now. For the first time in his 17 years, he saw a strange sight, a wimpy loser daring to fight him. To him, Dajun was like a fearless puppy barking at a lion. Tae-young told Dajun to knock it off, warning him that he would die if he fought him. Dajun responded, "Don't spit on the store's floor." Tae-young, thinking Dajun couldn't understand him, suddenly charged at him, saying he would make him slobber all over the floor. Seeing Taeyong coming, Dajuan remembered the first rule of street fighting: use your surroundings. He pulled a table towards Taeyong, which collided with him. Dajuan thought, block their movement, and then recalled Hangil's teachings. In another flashback during Dajuan's training, Hangil trained Dajuan to punch. Hangil threw countless punches, but Dajuan didn't move, paralyzed by fear. Hangil taunted him, asking if he had given up and was ready to run away. Dajuan remained immobile. Hangil scolded him, telling him not to space out while being punched. Hangil then demonstrated how to punch properly, performing a dummy punch on Dajuan. He explained that the left fist is used to keep the opponent in check, while the real punch is hidden behind the jab, with power flowing from the foot to the fist. Hangil raised his hand, admitting it was hard to use right away but promising to watch over Dajuan's form, encouraging him to keep practicing. Dajuan fell to the ground, seemingly hit by the dummy punch. Back in the store, Dajuan thought about the punch that had been drilled into him over the past few days. Taeyong, momentarily confused by being hit with a table, saw Dajuan channel his power from his foot to his fist and land a perfect punch straight to Taeyong's head. Nian and her father were surprised. Nian thought that Dajuan, always a friend she wanted to help, was different from usual. Dajuan felt satisfied, thinking he had finally perfected the punch. Meanwhile, Dayob was talking to Hangil on the phone. Dayob criticized Hangil for teaching Dajuan to fight and suggested that Hangil find a part-time job if he had so much free time. Hangil replied that he didn't want to work and asked why Dajuan wanted to learn how to fight, noting that Dajuan's reasons sounded like that of a loser. Dayob acknowledged this but pointed out that Dajuan was learning quickly and could fight effectively. However, he questioned who Dajuan could beat just by learning the basics, emphasizing that physical strength is crucial when novices fight. Back at the store, Dajuan's punch does not affect Taeyong. Taeyong, surprised, asks if Dajuan works out. He then throws a punch at Dajuan, but Dajuan dodges it. Dajuan realizes that while Taeyong's movements suggest he doesn't know how to fight, it's still terrifying to evade his punches. He knows it's over if Taeyong catches him. Determined, Dajuan decides he'll keep dodging and punching until Taeyong drops. He hits Taeyong multiple times, but it's like hitting a brick wall. Nothing seems to hurt him. Taeyong smiles and corners Dajuan, grabbing his collar and delivering heavy punches. He taunts Dajuan, saying he'll die if he continues to fight. Taeyong then grabs Dajuan's neck with both hands, choking him. Dajuan struggles to breathe. Suddenly, Nian rushes in and tries to pull Taeyong off, but he pushes her, causing her to fall to the ground. Blood trickles from Dajuan's mouth as he wonders if he'll ever break free from being a loser. On the other side of town, Dayob is on the phone with Hangil. He tells Hangil that he thought Dajuan would be useful because he seemed a bit unhinged. How was he supposed to know Dajuan would get stabbed? He warns Hangil not to let Dajuan get too full of himself, pointing out that some people can't fight even after being taught. Hangil replies that not everyone is a genius like Dayob, but he's noticed that Dajuan has a sense for it. Back in the pizza shop, Taeyong still has his grip on Dajuan's neck. Suddenly, Dajuan spits in Taeyong's face, remembering the second rule of street fighting: block your opponent's vision. With Taeyong's eyes temporarily blinded, Dajuan takes advantage and continues punching him, but it still seems ineffective. Taeyong smiles through his temporary blindness. Dajuan remembers the third rule: look for something useful around him. He grabs a drink bottle and smashes it over Taeyong's head repeatedly. Taeyong screams for him to stop. Despite his bleeding hands, Dajuan keeps hitting Taeyong, thinking that this is nothing compared to being stabbed. He continues until the bottle breaks, and then Nian approaches, telling him he can stop now. Taeyong has fainted. Nian's dad is confused, marveling that a part-timer beat the giant Taeyong. Dajuan looks at Taeyong and threatens to kill him if he sees him near the store again, vowing to rip him apart. He collapses to the ground, relieved, thinking he has finally won with his own two hands. Suddenly, Taeyong's two mates enter the shop, wondering what's going on. One of them remarks that it looks like Taeyong got knocked out. The other doubts it was Dajuan and Nian. They look at the owner and suggest maybe he's stronger than he looks. But Dajuan stands up and declares that he's the one who took Taeyong down. Nian tries to stop Dajuan, worried he can barely stand, but Dajuan signals her to stop. He vows to keep fighting no matter what and challenges the two men. They're confused until one of them is suddenly punched by Kim Taek. Nian supports her father as he stands. Dajuan, surprised, asks how Taek got there. Taek ties his hair back with a rubber band, telling Dajuan he's worked hard and that he'll handle the rest. Rolling up his sleeves, he challenges the two men, asking who wants to die first. The two men charge at Taek, but they're quickly taken down by his heavy punches and kicks. Dajuan is amazed at Taek's strength. After knocking them out, Taek grabs one of the men by the collar and demands to know who sent them. The man confesses that Chun Ki-woong ordered them to do everything and insists he had nothing to do with the gas incident. Taek kicks the man unconscious and mutters that it was those guys from Haegwang. Dajuan, confused, asks who they are and why they would do something like this. He remembers the gas incident and wonders if it's related to the group the gangster mentioned. Taek explains that the area's security has been terrible for a long time, with the police having given up on dealing with endless crimes. This allowed mafia groups to grow their illegal businesses. Dajuan asks if these guys are mafia. Taek clarifies that the mafia groups were wiped out by the local delinquent group, Haegwang, who now controls the area like the mafia they replaced. Chun Ki-woong is known to be the most vicious within Haegwang, and they're likely targeting them for getting in their way. Taek looks at the owner and asks why he didn't say anything all this time. The owner explains that it's impossible to deal with Haegwang, whose cruelty knows no bounds. He recalls seeing many shops ruined by them. The owner says he couldn't let Taek and Dajuan get more involved with those crazy guys. Taek becomes angry. Dajuan, now by Nian's side, puts a hand on her shoulder. Nian thanks Dajuan for helping them, tears in her eyes as she admits she was scared. Meanwhile, Daeyob is returning from his job, walking down the street while talking to Taek on the phone. Taek informs him that Chun Ki-woong attacked the pizza shop. Daeyob becomes angry, realizing that Haegwang is trying to mess with them. Taek says they need to take countermeasures against Haegwang, reminding Daeyob of Chun Ki-woong's danger. He tells Daeyob to take care of himself first. As Daeyob walks, he sees some guys harassing shops nearby, with an old woman and a child sitting near one store. One of the guys tries to attack the old woman with a steel rod, but Daeyob intercepts, grabbing the rod and preventing the attack. He punches the guy in the face. One of the other harassers recognizes Daeyob and warns the others that they're dealing with him. They claim to be from Haegwang. Daeyob charges at them, declaring his name. After some time, Daeyob has beaten and knocked out all the guys. He turns to check on the old woman, asking if she's okay. She points behind him and suddenly, Daeyob is struck on the head with a bat by Ki-woong. At Hangel's house, Taek desperately wants to help the pizza place because he considers their pizza very delicious. The others jokingly agree with him and decide to help defend the pizza place. Everyone gets a message about Daeyob being captured and brutally beaten up, along with the location of the abandoned factory where he is being held. They immediately head there to rescue their precious friend. Before the runaway family arrives at the factory, Taek gives Dojin the option to leave, thinking he would be a liability and hold them back. Despite this, Dojin shows up because he wants to help Daeyob. At the factory, they find 15 Haegwang members, but there are only 4 of them. In reality, it's more like 3, since Dojin is seen as useless. Ki-woong welcomes them by smacking and stepping on Daeyob right in front of them. Gaeong tells Ki-woong to stop acting tough and mentions how ugly he looks. Ki-woong orders his guys to shut them up. The fight begins, and while Dojin stands frozen, Taek and Gaeong prove they are on equal footing with Ki-woong's men, easily fending them off. Dojin tries to protect Gaeong, thinking she is fragile, but she shoves him aside and uses her flexibility to compensate for her lack of strength. Realizing all 3 of them are strong, Dojin calculates that they have already beaten half of Ki-woong's men. Seeing enough, Ki-woong approaches Taek with his metal bat. Meanwhile, Dojin struggles to even throw a punch at one of Ki-woong's normal guys. He tries to use his surroundings to gain an upper hand but ends up being taken hostage due to his inexperience. Proving himself a liability, the fight pauses as Ki-woong demands the runaway family kneel if they want to see Dojin alive. Taek refuses to surrender, and Dojin tells him to leave him if he becomes baggage. However, Dojin's recklessness shows as he stops a shard of glass with his bare hands. Impressed, Take realizes Dojin is the wildest and craziest among them. Dojin defeats his captor and tries to stop the blood flow from his wounds. The others are shocked to see that Take has single-handedly defeated Kiwoong. With Kiwoong on his knees, Take begins a victory speech, but Kiwoong interrupts, saying the fight isn't over. Kiwoong gets up to attack again. While he uses his metal bat, Take is barehanded, making it an unfair battle. Take looks for an opportunity to launch a decisive move to end the fight quickly, but Kiwoong is one step ahead and uses his men to catch Take from behind. After he starts beating him up, Dojin comes from behind and uses a wooden plank to hit Kiwoong on the head. However, this barely does any damage and only makes Kiwoong even more furious. Approaching Dojin with a menacing aura, Kiwoong asks if he wants to die. Paralyzed by fear, Dojin realizes he has never fought anyone so violently and cannot bring himself to move. Kiwoong wastes no time, using his bat on Dojin and making him gag. With one shot to the belly, Dojin falls to the ground, admitting defeat. Despite his minimal contribution, Dojin's actions buy the runaway family enough time to defeat Kiwoong's men. The trio then charges at Kiwoong from 3 different sides, their excellent teamwork briefly neutralizing his movements. However, Kiwoong's strength allows him to break free, remaining unharmed no matter what the trio throws at him. He mocks them for their weakness and offers them one last chance to give up and work under him. Gaeong retorts, asking if he has hit his head, and declares she would rather die than serve someone so ugly. In response, Kiwoong summons dozens more men and finally defeats Take and his friends. He tells Take that he is sending someone to burn his favorite pizza place to the ground. Before he can make the call, Dojin crawls up and bites his leg, unwilling to see Neon and her father suffer. He bites as hard as he can until Kiwoong shoves him away with his bat. Kiwoong proceeds to call the person to burn the pizza place, but the call is answered by Hangil. Hangil has already beaten up the person for arson and vows to show no mercy for hurting his friends. Kiwoong, who originally thought Hangil had run away like a scaredy cat, is greatly amused to see him standing there. Hangil sees Take and the others defeated and knocked down, realizing they must have been beaten badly to be in such a state. He remarks that it's been a while since he has seen Take in such a sorry condition. Hangil tells Kiwoong that he won't leave in one piece after what he did to his family. A brainless thug attacks Hangil, thinking he is all bark and no bite, but Hangil demonstrates that he is in a completely different league. He provokes the others to attack him, but seeing his skills, Kiwoong's men are too scared. To motivate them, Kiwoong puts a $1,000 bounty on Hangil's head. Using his Ultra Instinct, Human Edition, Hangil defeats his opponents one by one, picking up anything he can find to use as a weapon. Dojin, barely able to keep his eyes open, is amazed at Hangil's abilities. Realizing he is about to lose, Kiwoong threatens to break Take's arm. But Hangil remains unfazed and continues beating up Kiwoong's men one after another. Take tells Kiwoong that Hangil isn't the type to be swayed by threats. If he were, he wouldn't have made it this far. Despite this, Kiwoong breaks Take's arm to make Hangil regret his decision. However, Hangil remains resolute, moving steadily towards Kiwoong. Kiwoong recalls a warning from his boss, who had said that Hangil was as strong as the Haeguang leader and advised him to avoid Hangil at all costs. His boss had even emphasized leaving Hangil alone if he got in their way. Ignoring this advice, Kiwoong had messed with Hangil and now had to face the consequences. When Kiwoong attacks, Hangil dodges effortlessly, continuing to defeat everyone else. Hangil informs Kiwoong that he's no match for him and quickly knocks him down with a few punches. Unfinished, Hangil demands Kiwoong get back up. Kiwoong attempts a surprise attack but ends up with a broken arm. Hangil accuses Kiwoong of orchestrating the gas incident and what happened to Daeyob, asserting that eliminating him would be best for everyone. Kiwoong threatens to inform the big boss about Hangil, but Hangil is undeterred, moving closer to the fire pit. Kiwoong remembers why his boss feared Hangil. He never ended things easily after defeating someone. Proving his boss right, Hangil shoves Kiwoong's head into the fire pit. Kiwoong screams and begs Hangil to stop, but Hangil reminds him that he started this conflict and must face the consequences. Hangil tells Kiwoong that his friends would have died in the gas incident if Dojin hadn't woken up at the right moment. He chastises Kiwoong for messing with them if this is all he is capable of. After giving Kiwoong a second-degree burn on his face, Hangil releases him. Kiwoong screams in agony, but Hangil silences him by shoving a foot in his mouth. Dojin watches in shock, witnessing Hangil's terrifying ruthlessness for the first time. Hangil then goes to Daeyob and gently taps his cheeks to wake him up. But Daeyob is completely knocked out, so Hangil carries him on his back. He then looks over at Dojin with a big smile and tells him they can go home now. Thanks to Hangil's efforts, the runaway family survives their fight against Hae Gwang and comes out victorious. However, things are about to take a bad turn for Hangil's crew as their conflict with Hae Gwang intensifies. Daeyob, Dojin, Taek, Gaeong, and Songbin are admitted to a hospital. Financial difficulties arise as none of them can go to their jobs. The pizza place's owner, in gratitude, steps in to pay their hospital bills. Meanwhile, Hae Gwang keeps a low profile, and rumors spread that Hangil had taken down Kiwoong. Dojin believes everything is going to be resolved, but Hangil corrects him, warning that Hae Gwang will be back soon. He tells them that more people in Hae Gwang are even stronger than Kiwoong. Hangil believes that another member of Hae Gwang will come to their neighborhood to take over Kiwoong's role and seek revenge. Hangil gives them two choices: leave the neighborhood quietly to avoid further trouble, or stay and brace themselves for what's coming. Daeyob points out that Hangil was the one who brought them to this neighborhood and wants him to choose the best option, reminding him that they have nowhere else to go. Hangil goes to the roof to clear his thoughts, and Dojin follows him. Dojin asks if there's a way to get stronger faster, but Hangil thinks he is learning quickly enough. Dojin explains that he has changed but still feels like a liability. He wants to be as strong as Hangil or the others to face Hae Gwang when they come. Hangil, seeing his determination, considers a tougher but faster training method for him. Meanwhile, the pizza place enjoys temporary peace, free from the threat of Hae Gwang. The owner hopes this calm will last longer. Dojin returns to work and sees Neon coming back from school. Although terrified about something, she smoothly asks Dojin out on a date. Dojin agrees without realizing it's a date. They plan to meet in front of the pizza place, but Neon doesn't show up. So, Dojin goes to her school, dressed up as a bad boy under Daeyob's influence, and waits for her. Standing near the school makes him feel strange, reminding him of his own time as a student. He feels like he is in a completely different world from them, but then he notices Neon on the school grounds. 3 guys have surrounded her, and the most handsome one among them proposes to her. The handsome guy gives her a teddy bear, but she knows there is a hidden camera inside, so she throws it away. The handsome guy then reveals his actual sick character and starts getting his way with her. However, Dojin arrives to teach him a lesson. The handsome yet despicable guy named Donga mocks Dojin for uttering some cliched words. Donga pushes Dojin away and grabs Neon to take her with him. Dojin punches Donga, making him bleed from his nose. Enraged, Donga smacks down Dojin, demonstrating his dominance as a bully. Despite this, Dojin gets up and begins to provoke Donga. Realizing they are attracting unnecessary attention on the school grounds, Donga decides to end the fight. Before leaving, he tells Dojin that he will remember his face and that they will meet again soon. Dojin and Neon try to forget about the encounter and enter a coffee shop to continue their date. Dojin asks Neon if the guy harasses her all the time. He senses that it is difficult for her to talk about such things, so he shares his own story of being bullied at school. He explains how he thought that he would cause trouble for others if he told them about it. In hindsight, he realizes that it would have been much better if he had confided in someone. He tells her that holding it in won't solve anything and that she will eventually explode if she keeps it to herself. Dojin promises to help her so that she doesn't end up in a miserable state like he once did. Seeing how supportive Dojin is, Neon bursts into tears and shares her story of being harassed. She tells him that she and Donga were in the same class at the start of the school year and had become friends, thinking he was a nice, charming kid. One day, he began behaving strangely and touched her buttocks. He immediately apologized, claiming it was an accident. However, he started pushing boundaries more frequently and in more cunning ways. By the time Nian realized something was wrong, it was too late. She was already labeled as his toy by the entire school. Dongha instigated his classmates to harass Nian, but none of them admitted to being influenced by him. She considered seeking help, but her father was already struggling because of He Guang, so she couldn't confide in him about her ordeal at school. When Dojin heard her story, he couldn't believe she had been silently suffering while putting on a cheerful facade. He thanked Nian for sharing and promised to teach Dongha a lesson. Meanwhile, Dongha was at a karaoke center, trying to harass another classmate. Her boyfriend tried to intervene but was no match for the seasoned bully and endured repeated beatings. Desperate, the girl begged Dongha to stop, and he relented only if she sang a song. Trembling in fear, she began to sing, which Dongha found amusing, though he found Nian far more intriguing. Dongha revealed he had dug up Dojin's entire life history and pondered how Naeon ended up with someone like him. Wanting Nian to suffer as well, he schemed to use her distressed boyfriend to exploit her vulnerability, similar to his tactics with the other girl earlier. Dongha had already dispatched one of his cronies to tail Dojin, intending to use him as bait. However, Dojin had already tracked down Dongha without any need for such tricks. He swiftly incapacitated one lackey with a fire extinguisher and threatened to do the same to Dongha. With resolve, Dojin informed Dongha that Hangil had witnessed the lackey tailing him earlier and subsequently directed him to Dongha's whereabouts. Dongha was caught off guard as Dojin sprayed the fire extinguisher in his eyes, preparing to strike him in retribution for what he did to Nian. Dojin thought that Dongha could still stop the spray even when he was blinded. Dojin knew that Dongha was more skilled than him, so he needed to play dirty. He thought that if he wanted to beat him, he had to take advantage while he was distracted. He tried to distract him, but Dongha was way ahead of his petty tricks and started pounding on him. Dojin tried to get his guard up, but he couldn't even lift his hands against Dongha. Dongha smashed Dojin's head with his fists, hitting him countless times and sending him flying to the ground. He told Dojin that he intended to get his way by using him to blackmail Nian and thanked him for coming there himself. Dongha began to have more perverted thoughts in his sick mind. He thought that if he beat up Dojin, then Nian would do anything for him. Hearing that, Dojin got mad and lunged towards Dongha, but Dongha overpowered him again. Dojin wondered why he couldn't even land a hit on this scumbag. He realized that his skills were not strong enough. So, he decided to give up fighting like a man and return to fighting dirty again. He opened the metal door to intervene in Dongha's attacks and damage his right hand. Dojin then came at Dongha again to just land one hit. But once again, he got knocked back again and again. Dongha told him to stop trying, but Dojin told him to stop with the bullshit speaking. Dojin noticed that ever since he punched the door, Dongha hadn't used his right hand. Dojin knew he could beat him now that his right hand was completely unusable. But Dongha was surprised that Dojin noticed that and was confident he could beat Dojin using only his left hand. So he came pounding at him again and again. But this time, Dojin had his guard up and stepped slowly forward while getting hit. Dongha realized that Dojin was coming for his right hand, so he desperately tried to punch him away. But Dojin remained resilient and finally grabbed Dongha. Dojin remembered the technique Hangil had taught him to use against a trained boxer like Dongha as the special lesson. In the flashback, we see Dojin worried that Hangil was not going to teach him a new boxing move. Hangil replied that even if he learned something now, it wouldn't work against a former boxer. Hangil said that he told him to get into real fights because losing also helps. Dojin looked at the floor, concerned that he couldn't lose. He had to defeat that punk. Seeing Dojin sad, Hangil put his hand on his head and said that if he was certain Dongha was a former boxer, then he just had to remember one thing. When there was an opportunity, dig in deep and grab him. In technical terms, it was called clinching. It's a type of defensive boxing technique where one boxer closes the distance, wraps the opponent's arms, and holds onto them to prevent movement. So in the present, Dojin followed Hangil's instructions and grabbed the back of Dongha's head with his hands. Then he delivered a knee kick to the gut as hard as he could and then went at him wherever he could, repeatedly. Dongha's rib bones began to crack, so he tried desperately to get out of Dojin's hold and began to step back. Hangil also said that if he clinched, Dong-ha would instinctively retreat if he was a boxer who didn't know how to counter knee kicks. Do-jin remembered Hangil's instructions and followed up with a kick right at Dong-ha's head. Dong-ha wondered why he couldn't beat a loser like Do-jin. When he first learned how to box, everything went his way at school. Whatever he did, whoever he fought, everything worked out for him in the end. But now, why not this time? Well, to put it simply, it's because Do-jin was the main character. Do-jin kept punching Dong-ha and made him admit defeat. Dong-ha begged for mercy and promised to never go near Nian again. But that didn't fool Do-jin, as he had been a victim of bullies and knew that jerks like Dong-ha made fake promises. Do-jin remembered when he spared his bully once because he begged for mercy. But right after, that bully tried to attack him. So this time, he was not falling for that. He made it clear to Dong-ha that if Nian ever talked about him, he was dead. At that very moment, one of Dong-ha's friends saw Do-jin beating him. So he slammed Do-jin on the ground and began to choke him. Dong-ha got up, grabbed the extinguisher, and got ready to murder Do-jin. But Hangil came out of nowhere, kicked Dong-ha away, and came at Dong-ha's friend, swinging his elbow right at his face. Hangil revealed to Do-jin that he had been watching the fight all along to analyze everything so that he could give Do-jin feedback afterward. But he had to intervene as the fight wasn't fair anymore. Hangil told Do-jin that he would have won if the fatso didn't interfere and told him that he did great with all of the techniques that he was taught. But Hangil added that there was one big problem with Do-jin, and that was that he was too soft. The threats he made earlier didn't work on savages like Dong-ha, and he kept coming back at him because he didn't end it then and there. So Hangil told Do-jin that he should finish things from now on before the opponent came and staggers him in the back. Hangil then showed how to finish things and squeeze Dong-ha's testicles like lemons. Meanwhile, the girl and her boyfriend, who were being abused by Dong-ha before, wondered where her abuser went. She overheard a crying noise coming from the toilet and peeked to find that Dong-ha and his friends were half naked and being taught a lesson by the bully of the bullies, Hangil. Hangil filmed them in their miserable state and promised to upload this video if they ever troubled Nian again. Do-jin saw the girl peeking at them, so he told her to quietly leave the place. He saw that she was carrying her knocked-out boyfriend, so he realized that she must have also been abused by Dong-ha. He realized that Dong-ha was not only after Nian but other girls too. Hangil threatened them, saying that if they caused any trouble, he would make them the top story at their school. Do-jin told Dong-ha to never screw with anyone again. 2 days later, Hangil went to the pizza shop with Do-jin and Nian to eat pizza. Do-jin learned from Nian that Dong-ha had stopped harassing her and had become a guy who had lost all motivation in life. Nian thanked Do-jin for his help and became worried after seeing several cuts on his body. Hangil liked being the third wheel and continued to enjoy watching them silently. Nian told Do-jin not to worry about her school life anymore. But Do-jin revealed that he knew there were more harassers like Dong-ha. He told her that when he beat Dong-ha, he searched through his phone to delete the schoolgirls' photos and found a group chat full of perverted jerks who had a common interest in harassing women. Nian finally told the truth. There are a lot of bad guys in her school who are just like Dong-ha. She thinks this neighborhood has something to do with the rise of unscrupulous pigs like Dong-ha. Meanwhile, the girl who was bullied before is forced to tell some other thugs from her school about the guy who attacked Dong-ha. But she can't just give up the only righteous person who stood up against her abuser. She claims not to know him, but one of the bullies is sure that she knows something. The girl insists that she doesn't know anything and that Dong-ha didn't come back after leaving the Noribang. So she goes home. However, the bullies don't believe her, and one of them begins to pull her hair to torture her. An innocent pedestrian, Hangil, sees this and steps in to stop their vile act. Hangil grabs the hand pulling the girl's hair and tells them to stop. One punk asks who he is. Hangil answers that he is just an average runaway teen, and he is hungry. He asks them if they have seen the tuna cans that cat moms put out. The punk grabs Hangil's collar and accuses him of making fun of them. Hangil messes with them for a while until they raise their hands at him. He messes with them again and screams for help. Help comes dashing towards him. A flashback at the restaurant shows Hangil figuring out that a few of Nian's harassers are probably hanging around in the neighborhood. So, he proposes to use them for Do-jin's fighting lesson. Do-jin arrives to help Hangil and gets ready to use Nian's school bullies as his punching bags. Hangil tells Do-jin that these punks are his live training dummies. One of them swings his fists at Do-jin, but he dodges and counters with his punch. Another guy comes straight at Hangil, but Hangil makes it clear that he will not be fighting today and tells the guy to wait his turn to fight with Do-jin. Hangil then looks at Do-jin beating up the punk and sees that he is fighting better than before. Do-jin is dodging attacks using his footwork and landing hits at the same time. Hangil commends him for becoming the best of all the losers in the world. Meanwhile, Do-jin keeps smashing his new sandbag as he figures out how to fight him. He doesn't know how much stronger he has become, but he can feel that his opponent is the weakest of everyone he has faced before. Hangil also sees that things are getting too easy for Do-jin, so he lets the other punk go free and tells Do-jin to take both of them down at once. Do-jin is completely thrown off as he never signed up for this, but he has no option as the two punks in front of him come at him at the same time. The two argue with each other, saying they can't even handle one loser. This time, Do-jin is overpowered too quickly and gets hit from every direction. The two gain the upper hand, and he cannot even land a punch, let alone win. The girl tells Hangil to help Do-jin, but Hangil thinks Do-jin doesn't need any help. Do-jin comes up with a strategy to go after one guy, ignoring the other. But Hangil thinks this is the worst strategy, as Do-jin will eventually get beaten up. However, it seems this is the best strategy Do-jin can come up with. Do-jin furiously smashes one punk unconscious before getting kicked away by the other guy. The second punk sees that Do-jin has destroyed his friend and wants to take revenge. But his soul leaves his body as he sees Do-jin holding a broken glass bottle. He slowly steps back in fear and accidentally falls to the ground by stumbling on a rock. Do-jin conveniently stumbles on the same rock and falls face first on the ground too. The punk gets up to finally take advantage of Do-jin's blunder, but Hangil stops him midway and tells him to go home without making any noise. Knowing what a monster Hangil is, the punk carries his friend and slowly walks away. Hangil sees that Do-jin is still unconscious, so he carries him on his back and slowly walks back home. At home, Gaeong scolds Do-jin for getting into a fight every day while treating his wounds. Hangil asks Do-jin how he is going to take revenge on his bullies if he can't even beat two people at once. Hangil tells him that since bullies always stay in groups, Do-jin must increase his skills if he wants to seek revenge. Otherwise, he should forget about revenge altogether. Sometime later, in a park, bullies forcefully take all the money from one boy and begin to beat him up. Do-jin and Hangil find their way there, and Hangil points at them, signaling Do-jin to take them all on at once. A flashback shows Hangil telling Do-jin to take on a group of bullies. Since Do-jin doesn't have enough skills, Hangil advises him to use any dirty moves, considering it's a street fight. Hangil even teaches Do-jin more dirty techniques, promising him that using these techniques, he will win against any number of people. That's why Do-jin is here to take on 4 bullies at once. We see Do-jin's training session on the rooftop of the house where Hangil taught him how to use a hook. Hangil says to Do-jin that he can knock someone out with one good hook to the chin. Hearing that, Do-jin wonders if he can take several people out with a single hook. Do-jin replies that even if he learns the hook, he can't knock them out. Do-jin can learn the proper motion, but in order to knock someone out in one shot, he has to hit them right on the chin. Hangil mentions that even if he learns it, he will still need to have his opponent in the correct position to knock them out. Hangil then teaches Do-jin how to place a hook on the jaw of the opponent. Back to the present, Do-jin follows Hangil's instructions, goes up against the group of bullies, and immediately throws the first punch. The first bully comes crashing to the ground and gets knocked out. The others wonder what just happened. While they are still trying to figure out what's going on, Do-jin goes to beat up another bully, but fails to knock him down as he can't hit the jaw. The third bully comes from behind and knocks Do-jin down, and the 3 of them start beating him up. They ask the nerd if Do-jin is his friend, but learning that he doesn't even know him, they get confused. Meanwhile, Do-jin remembers his sensei Hangil's words again. Hangil told him that it would be hard for him to win against a group even if he landed the first punch. He will need to take down at least half of them before they get ready to fight. And if there are more than 3 people left, the only way to fight them all at once doesn't exist. Not for a loser like Do-jin. So, the only option is to run away. And Do-jin runs away. The three bullies come after him. Doojin tries to block their path and makes one of them fall to the ground. Again, according to Hangil's instructions, Doojin lures one of them to get close to him and hits him with a strong hook. Then he begins to run again and even outruns the two bullies who are left. The two bullies decide to split up to find Doojin, and the game of looking for prey begins. But Doojin is the predator here, and he hits his first prey with another strong hook. This guy blocks the hook in the nick of time and immediately hits Doojin with a round kick. Doojin tries to fight back, but the guy's kicks are too strong for him to take, and he falls to the ground. The guy stomps on Doojin and asks him why he is after them. But Doojin can't just say that he only wanted to practice his new skill, so he stays silent and keeps getting hit until the guy gives up and tells his friend to come there. Doojin remains resilient and begins to smash the guy's face with the rock over and over. The other guy comes to save him from Doojin, but seeing that Doojin has gone completely crazy, he becomes hesitant. The guy asks Doojin what his problem is and why he is after them, even though they did nothing to him. Doojin also wonders why, and then he sees a flashback to when his bully beat him for no reason too. So that's his excuse, just because. Doojin slowly limps forward and punches the guy's left hand with the rock. The guy realizes that Doojin is crazy. He begins to run away, but Doojin runs out of energy to chase him. The guy is going nowhere as Hangil trips him, causing him to fall to the ground. Hangil asks him where Doojin is. The guy loses his temper for no reason and comes at Hangil. He stands up and tries to punch Hangil, but Hangil still looks confident. Instead of the guy's punch hitting Hangil, Hangil punches the guy in the face. Hangil's one punch knocks him unconscious. Hangil leaves the area, telling the unconscious bully not to ask him where Doojin is, but that he can probably go back to where he came from to find him. Hangil then goes to find Doojin and sees him limping his way. Hangil asks Doojin why he let one of them get away even after he was taught how to fight a group. Doojin explains that he ran out of energy and struggled because one of the four was a lot stronger than the others. Hangil laughs and congratulates Doojin for taking on a gang of bullies alone, telling him that he is no longer a loser. Of course, he must mention that Doojin's strength still doesn't come close to that of his other runaway family members. 2 days later, at Neon's school, Jungran High School, two gangsters discuss the new bastard going around beating up bullies at their school. One of them, Sehyun, asks the other guy, Dongjin, if Dongha was weak. Dongjin doesn't want to go into the matters of the past and tells Sehyun to find the guy who is beating up everyone before the reputation of Jungran School's bullies gets tarnished. Dongjin tells Sehyun that the guy they are looking for wears a hoodie and has a teammate with a wolf-style haircut. Of course, they are talking about Doojin and Hangil. Dongjin mentions that the guy in the hoodie always shows up whenever a bully is beating someone up. While talking, they see two guys washing up at a sink, and one of them splashes too much water, which falls on Dongjin. Seeing this, Sehyun kicks that guy in the stomach, causing him to fall to the ground. He then comes closer to the guy and hits him countless times with his leg. His mate grabs Sehyun's shoulder from behind and tells him to stop because they are in the second year, and those are third-year athletes. But suddenly Sehyun turns around, ready to punch the guy who spoke, and says, "What if they are from the third year?" But one giant guy blocks Sehyun's punch, Han Jisoo, the student-athlete leader. Jisoo stands in front of them and says, "Do you think the third year has been ignoring your trashy behavior?" He also adds that they were busy training to get into athletic colleges, which is why they were not doing anything. Suddenly, they pick up a fight with Jisoo. But Sehyun isn't scared of Jisoo and kicks him hard. Jisoo blocks his kick and gets the upper hand. Sehyun spits in his eyes to throw him off and kicks him in the face. Then he begins to strangle Jisoo with a pipe and smashes his head on the sink until he gets unconscious, filling the sink with Jisoo's blood. That shows what a monster Sehyun is, and Dongjin is reportedly even stronger than him. After the fight is over, Sehyun calls the two guys who were washing their faces and tells them to follow him if they don't want any trouble. On the street, we see Doojin looking happy and smiling because he is on an unofficial date with Neon. Doojin thinks that he has been through a lot more difficult times since running away, but this moment is different because he is with Neon. Neon wants to go to karaoke, but on their way, Doojin sees a guy getting beaten up by some bullies. He wonders whether he should help them, He becomes selfish and thinks that he should spend his time with Neon rather than helping someone in need. But then he remembers the horrors he faced in the past because he was a victim of bullying. So he takes a temporary leave from Neon, making an excuse to go to the bathroom, and goes to confront the bullies. He beats the two guys with a single punch. Do-jin looks towards the victim, who is covered with a hoodie and glasses. The victim says that Do-jin seems good at fighting. Seeing that the victim is fine, Do-jin turns back and starts leaving the place. But suddenly, the victim asks if Do-jin wants to fight with him. Hearing that, Do-jin is surprised. Then suddenly, the victim grabs Do-jin's hoodie from behind and reveals his identity. It's Sehyeon in disguise, and he catches Do-jin red-handed. Sehyeon attacks Do-jin with a kick, and he realizes that Sehyeon must be here to get revenge for the bullies from Jungran High School. Sehyeon replies in the affirmative and tells Do-jin that he will be punished for hurting his fellow bullies. Do-jin gets ready to fight back, thinking he can take on Sehyeon as they have similar physiques. But he couldn't be more wrong. Sehyeon hits him so hard consecutively that Do-jin falls to the ground. Sehyeon runs toward him and punches Do-jin in the face. Do-jin's fists can't even reach him. Sehyeon mocks Do-jin and tells him to land at least one hit. Do-jin gets mad, but his tantrums get him nowhere as Sehyeon slams him on the ground and proceeds to pound his face. Do-jin regrets coming to this alley in the first place and tries to think of a way to escape. He grabs some dirt off the ground and throws it at Sehyeon's face, temporarily blinding him. Rather than running away, Do-jin goes for a surprise kick, but Sehyeon blocks it and counters with a dirty low blow. Sehyeon can't imagine how a loser like Do-jin went around beating up bullies. Thinking of it hurts his pride, so he begins to beat him again. He kicks Do-jin between the legs, causing him to fall to the ground. Then Sehyeon continues to hit Do-jin's face. Meanwhile, Neon wonders where Do-jin went, so she follows his footsteps and finds him all beaten up in an alley, gritting his teeth with blood on his face. They go to a park and sit on the swings. Neon learns that after beating Dong-ha, Do-jin went around fighting other bullies from Jungran High School. She asks Do-jin why he always fights with nothing holding him back. She thinks there was a special lesson Hangil was talking about. She tells him that something is bound to happen if he keeps going this way and tells him to quit acting this way. But Do-jin can't do that. He explains that he has lost everything because of the bullies from his last school. The kids who did that to him still look like they are happy, like nothing ever happened when he wanted to die. When Do-jin thinks about that, he can't breathe, and his mind goes blank just thinking about those days. He doesn't have the confidence to live a normal life with that sense of defeat, so he fights to survive. Neon understands his feelings and tells him that he can do whatever he wants with his life. She tells him that she always wanted to stand up against the bullies and wants Do-jin to punish those pigs on her behalf too. She tells him not to blame himself just because he lost and motivates him to become stronger. Neon wonders what his goal will be when he is done with his revenge arc. Do-jin explains that he has never thought that far, so Neon jokingly tells him to take over her father's pizza place as it is running out of business. They have a good laugh about it, and Do-jin thanks Neon for being so considerate towards him. Later, at Hangil's home, Do-jin tells everyone about the incident. Hangil warns him not to fight when he is not around and tells him to be careful from now on. Do-jin explains that he screwed up badly this time and reveals that Sehyeon took a picture of him to make him a prime target of the bullies from Jungran High School. Do-jin thinks that he has been thoroughly exposed to those guys who were specifically looking for him. But there's no need to worry, as Hangil's family is here to protect their little brother. Hangil forbids them to help Do-jin and tells him that if he is truly a member of this family, he must prove it by taking on the whole school himself. Hangil smirks menacingly and gives Do-jin the new task of conquering Jungran High School. Do-jin asks Hangil if he is seriously asking him to take over an entire school. Seeing Do-jin hesitant, Hangil asks him if he is not desperate enough for his revenge on bullies. Hangil explains that if Do-jin takes over Na-yeon School, he can take revenge on the bullies from his own school whenever he wants, using his lackeys. Hangil tells Do-jin that it's high time for him to stop being a loser. Do-jin agrees with Hangil and decides to take over the school. But Do-jin asks how exactly he should take over a school. The next day, The guys who bullied the girl earlier see Do-jin's photo in their group chat and show it to another guy. He mocks Do-jin for not being able to do anything in front of Sehyun. That punk thinks that Do-jin will never show his face again now that he is exposed. Another guy despises Han-gil for stepping in that night and claims he will murder Do-jin if he ever sees him again. Do-jin appears out of nowhere from behind them and tells them to beat him if they can. He immediately punches one of them and asks who the leader of Jungran High School is. A flashback shows Han-gil teaching Do-jin how to take over a school. Han-gil tells Do-jin that it's very simple. He just needs to beat up the strongest kids at Jungran High if he wants to take over. So Do-jin asks the punk who the leader is and threatens to beat him up like last time. The punk reveals that their leader is a person named Il-tak, who rarely comes to school but is stronger than everyone else. Then the bully shows a photo of Dong-jin and Sehyun on his phone. Since Il-tak doesn't come to school, Dong-jin and Sehyun are the number 2 and number 3 ranked fighters. The punk reveals that Dong-jin and Sehyun are the second strongest members of their school. He also adds that by the time they became freshmen, no one could challenge Dong-jin and Sehyun. He explains that when Il-tak isn't around, Sehyun and Dong-jin act as the leaders. After learning everything, Do-jin asks him to give their numbers and returns home. After coming back home, Do-jin was still worrying if he'd be able to beat all of them. He even got hooped by Sehyun. Seeing him all gloomy, Han-gil asks him the reason. He told Han-gil how he couldn't do anything against Sehyun's long reach. It was a struggle to even get near him. He was doubting if he even had a chance of beating that guy. But Han-gil hits him in the head, advising him not to cower as all the kids' fights are the same. If he just learns how to make up for his difference in reach, he could easily beat Sehyun. And he was not the one who was going to teach him this time. He points at Gaeong to be his mentor in that area. But she wasn't really thrilled by this and was annoyed seeing Han-gil slacking off again. Does Jin wonder if she is going to teach him? A few days later, while hanging out with his gang, Sehyun gets a message from Do-jin. He sends a beaten-up picture of one of his lackeys and challenges him in a one-on-one fight. Sehyun immediately hopped on his bike and rushed to the place where Do-jin had asked him to come. He remembered what his other lackey had told him about him taking over the Jungran High. He was starting to get on his nerves. When he arrives at the location, he yells his name, telling him to come out. When he calls him, he hears his phone ringing in the bushes. He rushes there to confront him, but he only finds his phone there. While he was distracted by the phone, Do-jin attacked him from behind out of nowhere. But even though it was a surprise attack, Sehyun was able to block it easily. He mocked Do-jin for fighting dirty like he always does and asked him what his next plan of action was now that he had blocked it. During his training with Han-gil and Gaeong, Han-gil told him how to deal with someone who has long arms and legs. The trick was to not let them have the advantage of distance from the start. And to do that, one needs to throw a threatening punch. It doesn't matter if the punch hits or misses, as the true aim is going after the lower body that's been exposed from putting their guard up. And that's exactly what he does. He aims for Sehyun's lower body and knocks him down to the ground. Do-jin asks Han-gil what comes after that, to which Han-gil replies that once you're on top of the guy, the fight is already over. It doesn't matter if he had long arms and legs at that point. Do-jin announces how he was different from the last time they met. He then proceeds to grab his phone and starts the one-sided beating. On the other hand, the lackey contacted Dong-jin and told him the reason Sehyun rushed to the place. He was worried the hooded guy and his gang might jump on him. Dong-jin ordered all of his thugs to go look for him. The lackey warned him to be cautious of the wolf-cut hair guy. But Dong-jin cuts him off, telling him that he wasn't worried about Sehyun. He just wanted to bust the guy open for himself. He remarks how Sehyun wasn't in danger, he was the danger. Then we see the fight between Sehyun and Do-jin. Sehyun managed to get out of his hold with a unique trick. He warned him to reveal any other trick up his sleeve because if that was all he had, he was done for. Do-jin's head went blank. He was scared because he hadn't prepared anything for that scenario. Sehyun rushes towards him with a menacing look. Do-jin tries to dodge his punch, but it is just a feint. He kicked him instead of punching him, which surprised Do-jin. Do-jin tried to fight back, but it was of no use. He was kicking him left and right. Do-jin couldn't dodge his attacks, but creating more distance between them would be even worse. Sehyun makes fun of him for saying he was going to take over their school when he couldn't do anything to defend himself. When Dojin saw no other way, he resorted to repeating his technique to tackle him again. But he had already warned him that it wouldn't work on him twice. He grabbed him in a chokehold, making Dojin wonder if he had anything on him. He was overwhelming him in every way possible. And for that reason, it was crucial for him to win. He attacked his testicles when he didn't see another way. While Sehyun screamed in pain, he used the same method Sehyun had used on him to trip him over. Sehyun couldn't believe he just copied him. Nor did Hangil, who was watching them fight from the top. Hangil remembered the time he copied his moves too just by seeing it just one time. He was impressed and proud of him simultaneously. While Dojin was trampling Sehyun, he thinks of a way to get out of that situation. Sehyun asked him why he was beefing with them when all he did was fight for his innocent friend from his school, who got beaten up for no reason. This pisses Dojin off even more. The fact that he was calling his lackeys innocent even after knowing what they were doing. He was about to bust him up even more when Sehyun grabbed onto his legs. Dojin thinks he was begging him to stop, but he couldn't be more wrong. Just then, we see Dong-jin coming from behind on a motorcycle. As he was about to run over Dojin, Dojin wondered if he was going to die just like this. Just then, Hangil grabbed him by his hoodie and saved him. Dojin couldn't believe he almost died. He recognized the guy from the picture, Kim Dong-jin. Dong-jin scolds Sehyun for getting his ass handed to him by a loser. Hangil asks about the guy. Dojin informed him that he was one of the 3 guys he needed to defeat to take over the school. Hangil informed Dong-jin that it was a 1v1 fight and that he needed to be in line for his turn. But the guy wasn't here for a fair fight and attacked Hangil. Hangil easily dodged him and allowed him to fight Dojin 2-on-1. Hangil runs away saying if he helps him, it wouldn't be Dojin taking over the school. It had to be him if he wanted to take over that school. Dong-jin was confused and didn't understand his angle. Dong-jin gets distracted seeing Hangil get away, so Do-jin uses this opportunity to come right at him with a strong hook. Do-jin lands the hook directly on Dong-jin's chin, but that's not enough to knock out the number 2 of Jong-eun-hai. Dong-jin smashes Do-jin's head with a kick and sends him crashing to the ground. He asks Do-jin if he truly intends to fight them both alone. Seeing the condition that Sehyun is in, Dong-jin asks Do-jin how he did that with his weak fists. Sehyun explains that he only damaged him because he let his guard down. Dong-jin then asks Do-jin why he wants to take over the school and if he holds any grudges against them. Do-jin accidentally reveals that he has seen their group chat and punches Dong-jin, but he doesn't even manage to make his face move with that weak punch. Dong-jin grabs Do-jin's head and asks what he saw in the group chat. He knows that there are private pictures of women, so he asks Do-jin if he likes those. Do-jin loses it with that question and bites hard on Dong-jin's hand. He blocks and dodges the next few attacks from the 2 of them. But there's only so much a loser like him can do. He realizes that he will die this way and wonders if Hangil meant for him to not take over the school. Sehyun laughs as Do-jin's only support leaves him running and tells him that he is dead. Do-jin asks Sehyun if he usually goes around ganging up on other people, pretending to act tough, and adds that if he were in their place, he would be too embarrassed to open his mouth. Do-jin lunges forward again to attack. But this time he dodges Sehyun's counterpunch and begins to run away from them. He wants to split up the 2 like the last time he faced a group of 4 members. But this time he is not nearly fast enough to outrun Sehyun. Do-jin remembers the uppercut move that Dong-jin used on him once, so he turns back to Sehyun and delivers the uppercut. Do-jin then goes for Dong-jin, using Sehyun's back kick move, but Dong-jin blocks it. Dong-jin then trips Do-jin over and begins to beat him up. Do-jin runs away again to look for another similar chance. But before he can do so, Sehyun comes from behind and grabs him to turn him into a living punching bag. This was never a fair fight to begin with, so Do-jin can't complain and silently gets beaten up. Do-jin thinks it's unfair that they are so much stronger than him, so he decides to make it fair by dragging Dong-jin into the river to choke him underwater. They reach the river floor, and now it's a battle to see who can last longer underwater. Dong-jin pulls Do-jin's hair with all his strength to let go, but Do-jin just doesn't let go. He is so determined to defeat Dong-jin that he chokes him with all his strength. Back on land, Sae Hyun notices that his nose is broken from Do-jin's uppercut and promises to murder him once Dong-jin drags him out of the river. But Do-jin is the one who stands tall and comes out of the river to finish off Sae Hyun. With both Sae Hyun and Dong-jin defeated, Han-gil finally comes and praises Do-jin. But it's not over yet, as there's still one more leader left at Yonggrin. Do-jin must fight him too, just not today. Han-gil helps Do-jin walk, and on their way, he sees all the lackeys of Dong-jin knocked unconscious. One of the lackeys reveals that Han-gil was the one who single-handedly beat all of them up to prevent any disturbance in the fight between Do-jin and the two bullies. The lackey calls their leader, Illinois Tak-hee, in a hurry to tell him everything. A few hours later, Zion and Dong-jin are lying beside the river, still in shock at what just happened to them. Il-tak finally reveals himself by showing up there, and he immediately kicks Sae Hyun for embarrassing him. He then promises to murder Do-jin in front of everyone for challenging him and Jungran High. The next day on the streets, while Do-jin is on his phone talking, two guys on bikes come to attack him. But Daeyob intervenes just in the nick of time and saves Do-jin. Han-gil comes out of nowhere as well and takes down the thugs on the bikes. Han-gil sees that these two punks are wearing Jungran High School uniforms, so it's clear that they were sent by their real leader. Do-jin directly calls Il-tak to challenge him to a one-on-one fight. Do-jin tells Il-tak that he will be taking over his school and gives him his name. Il-tak tells Do-jin to come alone to his place if he wants to fight him one-on-one. But Do-jin should know better that there's nothing fair in a street fight, as Il-tak is waiting for him with dozens of thugs armed with weapons. Well, Do-jin is not actually a moron, as he has his family with him, too. The lackeys realize that Han-gil is dangerous, as they have heard of him before, so they silently make a path for the runaway family and lead them straight to where Il-tak is. Han-gil promises Il-tak not to get involved in this fight and tells him to have a clean, one-on-one fight with Do-jin. Han-gil even provokes Il-tak to agree to a one-on-one fight. Il-tak decides to play along and gets ready to fight Do-jin. Before the fight begins, Do-jin asks Han-gil if he can beat him. Han-gil tells him that there's always a chance of winning in every fight, and he just needs to seize that chance. Do-jin gets motivated, but then he recognizes Il-tak as he approaches. He gets scared immediately as he sees Il-tak's face and reveals that they have known each other for a long time. Apparently, Illinois Tak is also one of Do-jin's old bullies, so he becomes even more motivated to take his revenge, even if it costs him his life. Il-tak also recognizes Do-jin and tells him that he has heard the story of him getting expelled after pushing Doyen. Il-tak takes a closer look at Do-jin and sees that he has changed. He promises to make him return to his old, scared face in no time. Do-jin remembers the first time he saw Il-tak. His body flinched as he witnessed Il-tak beating some kids half to death while playing pool, all because those kids had bumped into him. Upon learning that Do-jin was Doyen's plaything, Il-tak began harassing him every day and treated him as his human ashtray. He even beat up Do-jin for the cigarette burns and continued until Do-jin was completely broken. To exact his revenge, Do-jin must overcome his fears and confront one of his biggest enemies. He attacks Il-tak but misses completely as Il-tak smoothly dodges every move. Il-tak can see that Do-jin is scared, so he uses that to his advantage and continues beating him up. However, Do-jin gathers courage once more and forces Il-tak to step back. Il-tak asks Do-jin if he remembers being his human ashtray, while knocking him down with a kick. Il-tak tells Do-jin that he is still a loser and that nothing has changed. Han wants to intervene, thinking Do-jin is out cold, but Daeyob tells her to wait a little longer as he still has faith in him. Daeyob remembers how Do-jin trained wholeheartedly every day without stopping, and he saw the desperation in Do-jin's eyes during training. Daeyob knows that Do-jin desires this victory deeply, and if they interfere, Do-jin won't be able to achieve it on his own. Do-jin finally gets up again and grabs Il-tak strongly. Il-tak tries to break free, but Do-jin remains resilient and shoves him hard to the ground. He then attempts to punch Il-tak with his fists, but Il-tak sends him flying with a kick. Il-tak goes for another kick, but this time Do-jin grabs his leg and brings him down to the ground again. They both struggle to gain the upper hand. Il-tak's lackeys start to worry that he might lose to Do-jin. Il-tak feels embarrassed by their concern but becomes annoyed when he sees pure hatred in Do-jin's eyes. He twists Do-jin's right hand to change his expression. Do-jin recalls when Daeyob asked him if revenge was the most important thing to him. Daeyob suggested living peacefully with his runaway family, but Do-jin explained that he couldn't forget his past of being bullied. As night falls, he can't stop thinking about the faces that tormented him. Despite trying to forget, they haunt his dreams like nightmares. Even when things are going well, memories of his helpless face during bullying resurface unexpectedly, driving his need for revenge. This determination pushes him to endure the brutal training, fighting lessons from Hangil, and beatings from adversaries. Do-jin remains resilient and repeatedly smashes his head against Il-tak's. Il-tak remains conscious and tries to snap Do-jin's neck. The runaway family tries to intervene, but Hangil and Daeyob stop them, still having confidence in Do-jin. It's time for another flashback. Do-jin was having a good old sparring session with Joe, but Hangil had to ruin it with his mean comments. He told Do-jin that he could predict all his moves and called him slow. Then, he reminded Do-jin that he must get faster if he wants revenge. In response, Do-jin stepped on Hangil's foot and managed to get close enough to make Hangil use both of his hands to stop him. Back in the present, Il-tak tries to break Do-jin's arm, making it crack. Tae and Choi want to stop the fight, but Hangil remains confident that Do-jin can win. Il-tak bends Do-jin's arm, trying to break it, but Do-jin flips himself over by thrusting his legs upwards and gets on top of Il-tak once again. Han commends Hangil for being such a great mentor and teaching him tricks like this, but Hangil reveals that he never taught him this particular trick. Now that the tables have turned and Il-tak is starting to lose, his lackeys intervene in the fight. The runaway family also joins in and starts beating up everyone. Il-tak gets up and reprimands his lackeys for attacking Do-jin, expressing humiliation at their belief that he would lose. He commands everyone to stay put and approaches Do-jin to end the fight. Il-tak commends Do-jin for learning a few tricks, but warns that mere tricks won't work on him anymore. He kicks Do-jin in the face, but Do-jin remains steadfast and begins dodging his attacks. Do-jin retaliates with a punch of his own and prepares for another. Il-tak wonders how a loser like Do-jin is holding his own against him. He realizes that if things continue this way, he will lose the respect of his lackeys. Noticing their doubts, Il-tak lunges towards Do-jin, but Do-jin counters and matches his speed. Tae asks Hangil when he trained Do-jin to fight like this. Hangil deflects the credit, stating that he only taught Do-jin the basics and that Do-jin is fighting on instinct. Hangil realizes Do-jin has a natural talent for fighting and feels proud. Do-jin searches for the opportune moment, sees his chance, and lands a stunning punch on Il-tak. Even after taking the punch, Il-tak remains barely conscious. Do-jin follows up with another punch and a heavy uppercut, knocking out Il-tak and ending the one-on-one fight. Il-tak's lackeys ponder their next move, but ultimately decide to retreat as they are outnumbered by Do-jin's team. Before they can act, Hangil steps forward and stops them, warning that if they come closer, Do-jin will defeat them all. Hangil whispers to Do-jin to maintain a tough demeanor if he wants to be their leader. Do-jin toughens up and challenges them to attack if they want to risk their lives. Intimidated by Do-jin's victory over their boss, the lackeys retreat. Hangil praises Do-jin for his acting skills and assures him they won't trouble him again. Then, Hangil discusses what he learned from analyzing the fight. According to Hangil, Do-jin's victory was possible because Il-tak underestimated him due to their past perception of him as a loser. If Il-tak had regarded him as an equal from the start, Do-jin's chances of winning would have been much lower. Do-jin won fair and square, so Hangil congratulates him on no longer being a loser. After this event, winds of change swept through Jungran High School. Il-tak's defeat dismantled the bully group, and once they loosened up, the female victims of the group chat reported them to the police. As a result, a large-scale school violence prevention committee was established. Do-jin aided the committee by submitting all the data he had gathered from the bullies as evidence, resulting in most of them being transferred or, worse, expelled. Sae-hyun, Dong-jin, and a few others were sent to juvenile hall, but Il-tak disappeared before facing his punishment. In the end, Jungran High School found peace as all the bullies were gone. Nian began to smile peacefully, no longer suffering every day as before. Her father noticed her happiness and promised to treat her even better. Everything worked out well, and the runaway family held a celebration party for Do Jin's victory. Daeyob brought the celebration, but ended up eating most of it himself. Take cooked pork for Do Jin, expressing his surprise at how much Do Jin had changed in such a short time. Sung Bin also expressed confidence that Do Jin was now capable of seeking revenge. They ate together and celebrated. Later that night, Do Jin went to the rooftop because he couldn't sleep. Han-gil followed him and asked what was bothering him. Do Jin explained that this was the first time he had gotten revenge on someone who used to bully him. He felt a sense of satisfaction, but at the same time, he felt that life was still unfair. No matter how much revenge he exacted, he couldn't return to how things used to be, so he felt cheated. Han-gil asked if Do Jin was thinking of giving up on his revenge. Do Jin said no, that wasn't it. He still wanted to get back at those Wu Jin high punks as soon as he could. Suddenly, Han-gil put his hand on Do Jin's head and reminded him that his revenge arc wasn't over yet, and he should think about his other goals in the future. Han-gil promised Do Jin that he wouldn't regret his runaway life and assured him that he would ensure Do Jin enjoyed everything. Daeyob overheard their conversation and pondered something. The next day, as Do Jin got ready to go to work, Daeyob told him to stay, saying he had given him the day off. Daeyob then asked Do Jin to follow him and took the entire runaway family out to have some fun. He took them to a karaoke club where Gaeong sang her favorite songs. Then they played video games with Do Jin, and afterward, they went to a bowling alley where Sangbin showcased his talent. They had fun the entire day, which made Han-gil happy as well. Do Jin finally began to see his runaway family as his real family, but then his father showed up in front of him after abandoning him for months. Do Jin wondered what he should do and considered walking away. He remembered how strict his father used to be towards him when he was young, beating him every day for not being a bright student. But his mom told him that his dad did it out of love, so he believed her and kept studying hard to live up to his dad's expectations. Do Jin succeeded in getting good grades, but that wasn't enough to impress his dad. On the positive side, his dad didn't beat him that day and stopped beating him since. However, now his dad finally slaps him. Daejin's dad tells him to come back home immediately and calls him a total embarrassment. Do Jin asks why his worthless, abandoned son should come back after not being cared for all these years and tells him to stop pretending to be a proper father now. His dad gets mad and starts slapping him for speaking in that manner, saying he doesn't need someone like him in his family. Han-gil stops his dad from abusing Do Jin and politely asks Daejin's dad to leave. Daejin's dad realizes that Do Jin is essentially a thug, so he tells Do Jin one more time to come back home before giving up on him. Do Jin also declares that he doesn't need a father like him, so he lets him go and begins to cry as he no longer has a family. But Han-gil tells him that blood relations are not the only thing that makes a family. Understanding one another, Do Jin also realizes this and begins to smile, as he has now found people who understand him and what he goes through. So he returns to his runaway family, or rather, his real family. Do Jin continues to train daily and becomes bulky over time. He thinks that a few months have passed since living on the streets, and his previous life seems like a blur now that he has embraced his new lifestyle. He even finds a part-time job where he meets Nian and learns lessons from some rude customers in the pizza shop. Do Jin's daily life with his runaway family also improves as he starts getting involved in everything. He becomes completely accustomed to his new life and trains more. However, he still can't land a hit on Han-gil. On the other side of the hospital, Do Jin's original bully, Doyen, finally comes out of a coma. Doyen wakes up and the first thing he remembers is Do Jin.